Chapter 577. Suyu sucked in a breath of cold air. Is this a demon? He's completely different from the so-called demonic cultivators. Withdrawing his gaze, the scaled old man's purple eyes shot toward Suyu and the Ghost King at the same time. Suyu felt his whole body stiffen and couldn't move at all. His vital energy and spiritual energy were all stagnant and couldn't be used. The Ghost King's face was filled with fright as he said, "The demon has come out." That old thing released the demon from his soul before he died. The Ghost King's voice started to tremble and his face became extremely unsightly. Suyu's heart sank as he recalled the old man's resentful words before he died. He wouldn't let him off even if he died. He was about to die, yet he still released the demon to wreak havoc in the world. Humph, humph, humph. The scaled old man laughed. His laughter was ear-piercing and extremely uncomfortable. I have to thank you all for letting me go before he died. Only by gathering his scattered soul was I barely able to appear in this world. The demon's voice was raspy. His evil purple eyes flickered with a cold smile. The Ghost King looked at him and said in a low voice, "Since that's the case, why don't you let us go? Killing us won't do you any good." The demon sneered coldly. As a member of the Ghost Clan, don't you understand that we demons devour all living beings in the world to strengthen ourselves? You are my first nourishment, so you should be proud of yourself. The demon Chongling sneered coldly. Devouring living beings to create a demon body? Suyu's heart sank as he smiled bitterly. First, the silver puppet had appeared, and now, a demon had appeared. However, even so, Suyu couldn't just sit and wait for death. Suyu's body flickered as he flew 1,000 feet away in just a few breaths. The Ghost King, who was in the other direction, also did the same. The demon just sneered coldly as two black scales flew out of his body. They spun in the air and shot toward Suyu and the Ghost King. The scales covered a distance of thousands of feet in the blink of an eye and shot toward Suyu's back. Suyu's heart skipped a beat as he crazily poured his remaining vital energy into the dry cloud 5 elemental formation. The dim multicolored light screen shone with a shocking radiance once again. However, what caused Suyu's pupils to shrink was that the light screen of the dry cloud 5 elemental formation could not withstand the attack for even a moment, and it shattered with a bang. The black scale struck Suyu's chest. However, the pain he had imagined did not occur. The scales stuck to his chest and multiplied rapidly. In the blink of an eye, Suyu's entire body was covered by black scales. His cultivation and flesh were being devoured by the scales at a crazy rate. They attached themselves to Suyu's body, expanding and shrinking like worms. They were extremely terrifying. Suyu quickly felt the loss of his cultivation base and flesh, and his heart was filled with terror. Almost without thinking, Suyu's whole body flickered with lightning, and he turned into a ball of lightning and teleported. He was using the lightning escape technique. When the thunderbolts appeared, the black scales seemed to have met their nemesis, and almost all of them fell off. However, the scales that fell off from the demon's body stuck to the surface of Suyu's body and continued to devour his cultivation and flesh. What caused Suyu's heart to sink was that his thunder escape technique, which could allow him to escape 100,000 miles in an instant, could not leave the range of 10,000 feet. The churning demonic energy affected his teleportation. When he looked at the Ghost King again, he found that it had turned into a 10,000 feet tall, which was the form that he had seen in the beginning. He was both shocked and angry, and he was trying to shake off the scales on his body. However, the scales followed him like a shadow, and they stuck to the surface of the Ghost King's body, continuously devouring it. His 10,000 feet tall body was withering at a speed that could be seen by the naked eye. A single scale had put Suyu and the Ghost King in a life-and-death situation. This demon was too terrifying. However, the demon did not take advantage of this to attack Suyu. Instead, he stared coldly in a certain direction with his purple eyes. Humph, humph, humph. You want to leave now? It's too late. The demon's body trembled, and 10 scales fell off at the same time. They streaked across the sky, and 10 black fragmentary lines were shot in a certain direction. In that direction, where there was no one, a silver figure suddenly appeared. He wore a long silver robe and had handsome facial features. Who else could it be but the silver puppet? He was holding a figure in his hand, and it was Su Yu's clone. It turned out that he had already found Su Yu's location based on his clone. It was highly likely that he had come here when Su Yu was fighting with the Soul Old Man. However, he had been hiding in a corner, and no one had discovered him. It was only at this moment that the demon had descended, and it realized how terrifying it was. Only then did it decide to retreat quietly. Compared to the cold smile that it had been wearing before, the silver puppet revealed a look of fear for the first time. It retreated quickly, then flew toward the top of the sky, toward the gap that led to Jojo. It even gave up on Su Yu and chose to escape. However, the 10 scales were even faster than it had imagined. Before the silver puppet could escape to the gap, its body was covered by the 10 scales. In an instant, the silver puppet's cultivation, which was close to the Divine Master realm, was reduced by more than half, and it fell to the middle stage of the fairy realm. The silver puppet was shocked, and it shouted fiercely, "I have no enmity with you, so why do you have to kill me?" From its flickering eyes, it was easy to see that it was panicking. In the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, it had been assumed that it was an existence that stood at the peak, a supreme existence that could devour everything. However, a demon had unexpectedly appeared. With a low roar, an earth-shattering red line shot out of the silver puppet's body, washing away the 10 scales from its body. However, countless tentacles grew out of the scales, which pierced into the silver puppet's pores and continued to devour the scales. Fear appeared on the silver puppet's face, and the blood threads in its body rushed out like a volcanic eruption. His entire body had turned into a part of the blood thread. All of a sudden, a sea of blood rushed into the sky, covering the sky and covering the sun as it rushed toward the gap. For a moment, the sky was mixed with the color of blood, and it was very strange. The 10 scales lost their attachment, and they returned to the demon's body. The demon's lips curled into a mocking smile. "Humph, a mere puppet wants to escape from my hands?" Before he had finished speaking, he had already disappeared. At the gap, the sea of blood that filled the sky was rushing toward it. The silver puppet, who was hidden among the sea of blood, had an ugly look on its face as it rushed toward the gap with all its might. However, right at that moment a black light flashed, and the demon stood at the gap with its hands clasped behind its back, blocking it. The silver puppet was shocked, but it was about to escape, so it gritted its teeth and gave a command, causing the entire sea of blood to press forward. The demon laughed coldly. "Do you only have this kind of dirty trick?" The demon extended a palm and clenched it toward the sea of blood. All of a sudden, the sea of blood that filled the sky seemed to be grasped by an invisible hand of heaven, and it kept shrinking into the demon's palm. In the blink of an eye, the sea of blood disappeared, and all that was left was the silver puppet, whose neck was being grasped by the demon's hand. The silver puppet's eyes were filled with shock and deep fear. Su Yu was even more shocked by what he saw. The silver puppet, such a terrifying and ferocious creature, was actually being suppressed by the demon so easily. Su Yu's heart sank to the extreme. Swoosh! The demon's shadow flashed, and he picked up the silver puppet as if he were picking up a chick. After sizing it up, the demon nodded lightly. "Not bad. Although the energy you have swallowed is of a low level, it is barely enough for me to use." The silver puppet was extremely shocked, and it wanted to resist, but its body was not under its control. In front of the demon, the silver puppet was like a toy, and it could not resist at all. At the same time, the silver puppet was filled with regret. It had many opportunities to escape, but it had chased after Su Yu to kill him. In the end, it had encountered a demon that was even more terrifying than it was. Not only would the silver puppet's energy be taken away by this demon, but even his consciousness would be erased. However, the demon did not immediately swallow the silver puppet's flesh and blood. Instead, it swept its cold gaze over Su Yu and the Ghost King. At this moment, the Ghost King's 10,000-meter-tall body was shriveled like a skeleton, and its aura was extremely weak. As for Su Yu, he only had a single scale on his body, and he was also restrained by the thunderbolt, so he did not suffer a great loss. Humph! I will deal with you first, then enjoy this silver puppet. The demon grabbed the Ghost King's body. Slap! With a dull sound, the 10,000-meter-tall Ghost King let out a miserable shriek as its body was turned into a mass of flesh and blood. The dignified Ghost King had been killed just like that. The scales on the silver puppet's body revolved crazily among the flesh and blood, devouring it completely. Then, they returned to the demon's body. All of a sudden, the demon's aura rose slightly. "It's your turn." The demon shot a cold look at Su Yu as he raised his hand to grab him. All of a sudden, Su Yu's body felt like it was being squeezed by an unimaginable force, and he felt like he was about to explode. His heart thumped wildly, and the aura of death had never been so clear in his heart before. He knew that if he did not make any preparations, he would surely die. With a low roar, a long sword flickering with lightning flew out of Su Yu's chest. After the Cosmos Thunder Sword appeared, it turned into a bolt of lightning and struck the scales on the surface of Su Yu's body. The lightning power contained within the Thunder Sword was far greater than the lightning power that Su Yu had cultivated on his own. As such, the black scales, which were bombarded by the intense lightning, fell off on the spot and quickly dimmed. Then, they lay motionless on the ground as if they had died. After getting rid of the scales, Su Yu waved his sword back without hesitation, then retreated to avoid the terrifying pressure. The demon sneered coldly. "A semi-finished lightning-based magical treasure? It is indeed a restraint for us demons, but it is still too weak." As the demon raised his hand, the thunder sword in Su Yu's hand seemed to have encountered an irresistible suction force. The Cosmos Thunder Sword flew out of Su Yu's hand, and with a flicker, it fell into the demon's palm. As the lightning on the Thunder Sword came into contact with the scales on the surface of the demon's body, a sizzling sound could be heard as layers of black demonic energy rose from it. The demon's face was filled with coldness as he clenched his fist. Slap! With a cracking sound, the Cosmos Thunder Sword turned into countless lightning fragments. The sword had been destroyed. Su Yu's face turned pale. His first semi-manufactured spiritual artifact had been destroyed just like that. "What other lightning-based magical treasures do you have? You can use them all at once," the demon said coldly as he raised his hand to grab Su Yu once again. Despite facing such a crisis, Su Yu became even calmer. He was unwilling to accept this outcome, so he said coldly, "It's not over yet. Great Sun Punishment Fairy Picture, open." Su Yu's 10 fingers rotated as he weaved signs quickly. However, as he weaved signs, he didn't use any techniques. The demon furrowed his brows slightly, as he was slightly confused. Suddenly, he raised his brows and looked at the ground beneath his feet. There was a collapsed ruin there, and because of the angle, it had formed an underground space, which was quite suitable for hiding. From that underground space, a black scroll broke out of the ground. Chapter 578. Wisps of black flames were slowly emitted from the scroll. The moment the black flames appeared, the demonic energy in the sky retreated. The black sky was instantly evaporated, and the world of light reappeared. Within 1,000 feet, the earth melted into lava, the air was scorched into flames, and all the mountains, rivers, and plants were reduced to ruins in the flames. With the black scroll as the center, the space within 1,000 feet was all burned, and 1,000 feet of broken space appeared. The sky and the earth were all reduced to a world of flames. As the scroll was opened, the flames continued to spread, spreading from the ruins to the 5 mountains, and then from the 5 mountains to the entire space. When the scroll was half opened, the 8th level of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion had been reduced to a world of flames. The demon, who was in the middle of the flames, had not expected this. How could he have expected that the ground under his feet had been prepared to bury such a scroll? The flames of the heavenly calamity? The demon's face was full of surprise. How is this possible? What kind of scroll can seal the flames of the heavenly calamity? The heavenly calamity contained thunder, which was called disastrous thunder. The heavenly calamity also contained fire, which was called disastrous fire. What was sealed in the great sun punishment fairy picture was the tribulation fire. This fairy-level cultivation technique could swallow all the flames in the world and use them for one's own use. Activating this scroll required vital energy, so Suyu had only been able to use it now. When he had chosen to hide here from the silver puppet, he had buried this scroll in the ground, ready to give the silver puppet a fatal blow. He had never expected that he would use it on the demon. "Open!" Suyu shouted. The scroll was half opened. A ball of black flame the size of a fist rose up. The strange thing was that although the surroundings were scorching hot, the black flame itself did not have any heat to speak of. However, the demon revealed an abnormally fearful expression. Without thinking, he flew away from the tribulation fire. His purple eyes flickered with fear. Suyu snorted coldly. With a thought, the black disastrous fire caught up with the demon. Feeling the approaching disastrous fire, the demon's face was full of fear and he shouted, "Stop! I will spare your life, so stop immediately!" In front of the disastrous fire, even the demon was afraid. Suyu's face was cold and expressionless. With a thought, the disastrous fire caught up with him. The demon's expression was incomparably gloomy. "You deserve to die." Seeing that the tribulation fire was about to catch up to him, the demon grabbed at the air. The silver puppet that had been subdued was pulled over and placed in front of him. The silver puppet's eyelids twitched crazily, and it was overwhelmed with shock. It angrily roared at Suyu, "You damned little B*****. Stop." When facing a demon, he was terrified, but when facing Suyu, he was extremely mighty. From the bottom of his heart, he still felt that Suyu was just an ant that he could squash to death at any time. It was just that he was relying on many treasures. The only reply he got was Suyu's ice-cold words, "Die, all of you." Bang! The tribulation fire exploded. It was like the sun had exploded. Boundless black flames shot out in all directions, burning everything in their path into nothingness. The space within 10,000 feet was directly incinerated. Wisps of spatial turbulence swept in from the shattered area, sweeping away everything in the surroundings. A blood-curdling scream came from the purple flames that filled the sky. Amidst the raging flames, the silver puppet's body was melting rapidly. The silver puppet's material was extremely hard. Even Lu Chui could not break through its body without using the power of the Almighty. Now, it was like ordinary iron, gradually melting into liquid silver. The silver puppet's consciousness was directly burned, and it fell into a coma. The demon, who was hiding behind it, was not in a good state either. More than 90% of the black scales on his body had melted, revealing a transparent soul body. Moreover, his soul was very thin, as if it could be easily destroyed. After this, his vitality had been greatly damaged, and he was extremely dispirited. However, he had successfully saved his life. If the silver puppet had not blocked most of the flames with its powerful material, the demon would have been killed by the fairy-level cultivation technique. Now that he was not dead, Suyu was in deep trouble. The black scroll slowly fell back into Suyu's palm. If one looked closely, they would see that Suyu's palm, which was holding the black scroll, was trembling slightly. This was because he had overdrawn his strength. After going through so many extreme battles, Suyu was not only lacking vital energy, but his physical strength was also at its limit. Moreover, Su Yu's right arm had been cut off during the battle in the Great Bone Palace, and it had not fully recovered yet. Up until now, he had been barely able to use it. Now, he did not even have the vital energy to activate the Great Sun Punishment Fairy picture. However, the demon was not dead. The demon was panting heavily, and a large amount of black demonic energy was rising from his face. His whole body was trembling, and he looked extremely flustered. His purple eyes were filled with lingering fear, as if he had just survived a disaster. Then, his purple eyes were filled with rage and murderous intent. Good. You should be proud of yourself for forcing me to this extent. If you had another fairy helping you, I might really have been killed by you, but now. The demon's murderous intent was extremely strong. Although he had survived, his vitality had been greatly damaged, and his strength was even weaker than that of a fairy. If another strong fairy appeared at this moment, he was afraid that he would not be able to survive. Su Yu said coldly, "Fairy? Hee, I really do have one." A green light flickered on his arm, and a little girl in a pink dress appeared. Her long eyelashes fluttered like cattail leaf fans, and the dazed expression in her big eyes was extremely vivid. She had a small pink face, a cute nose, and pink lip. All of them made her look extremely adorable. However, her aura was different from the others. Only a fairy could possess such a surging and abundant vital energy. The demon's face stiffened, and his expression became extremely unsightly. "You actually carry a space with you?" Su Yu had once again summoned a fairy, which was beyond the demon's expectations. "Xinggu, kill him!" Su Yu did not waste any time and pointed his finger at her. The cute little girl was naturally Xinggu. She had been recuperating in the valley, and had not yet come to her senses when she was suddenly summoned. When she heard Su Yu's order, she instinctively furrowed her brows in anger. However, she immediately realized that she had become his servant, so she suppressed her anger and reluctantly looked at the demon. When she saw him, she almost ran away immediately. She gasped and said, "Demon," then, she realized that the demon was extremely haggard. At the same time, the demon was holding a blurry lump of silver metal in his hand. When he looked at it, he gasped again. That silver puppet? Her heart was filled with shock. What had happened? She did not know the demon's strength, but she had witnessed the terror of the silver puppet with her own eyes. Such a terrifying and ferocious creature had actually been burned into a pile of scrap metal? Who was it? Who did it? She turned to look at Su Yu, then immediately looked away. In her heart, although Su Yu was extremely powerful, compared to people of the same cultivation level, he was far from being this powerful. "Do you need me to repeat myself?" Su Yu frowned. He had just tamed this little girl, but she did not seem to be very obedient. Xinggu looked at Su Yu expressionlessly and said, "This will not happen again." After saying this, she turned into a mass of ghost energy and rushed over. Bang! Xinggu turned her palm over, and the surrounding spiritual energy condensed into a giant palm print, which slammed down. The demon was in a weakened state, so how could he resist it? He fell from the sky onto the ground, the remaining black scales on his body falling off, revealing a weak soul body. But without waiting for him to heave a sigh of relief, Xinggu attacked again. She opened her mouth and spat out a mouthful of corrosive ghost energy. The demon was enveloped by the ghost energy, and he let out a pathetic cry. His soul was being corroded by the ghost energy. The demon rolled around on the ground, roaring continuously. "Kill him quickly! Don't hold back!" Xinggu was feeling pleased with herself when she suddenly heard Su Yu's hurried shout. Xinggu did not care, but it was time to end the demon's life. But at that moment, the pathetic cries on the ground stopped abruptly. The demon, who had been in extreme pain, had regrown black scales on his body. Looking closely, the silver puppet that he had been holding in his hand all this time had disappeared. The silver puppet had swallowed so much blood, flesh, and cultivation base. The energy it had stored had been completely absorbed by the demon. In the blink of an eye, more than 70% of the demon's body was once again covered in scales. His dispirited and listless body had also suddenly disappeared. A terrifying ferocious energy once again surged out from his body. Not only had his injuries healed, but his abilities had also recovered by 70%. The demon stood up once again and flicked the dust off his body. His purple eyes were filled with a mocking, cold smile. What a pity! It was not easy for me to be seriously injured and half dead. But the slave you subdued was extremely stupid. She did not finish me off earlier, giving me the chance to recover. Su Yu's eyes were filled with a cold glow. If Xinggu had killed him earlier, would she have given the demon time to absorb the silver puppet's energy? Even though Su Yu had ordered her to, Xinggu did not care. It was this kind of attitude that had added to the variables, allowing the terrifying ferocious demon to recover. Feeling the suffocating ferocious energy, Xinggu felt as if she had just awoken from a dream. Just now, it had been as if she had faced a great enemy. Her heart was beating like a drum. Now you no longer have any chance. The demon laughed mockingly. With a flicker of a dim light, he disappeared from his original spot. Xing Ji's expression changed abruptly, and she immediately moved. But the demon's terror was far beyond Xing Ji's expectations. Before she could move, her neck was grabbed by a ferocious demonic claw that was covered in scales. Her entire body's power had been sealed. She could not move, nor could she resist. Xinggu was horrified, and her heart was thumping wildly. This demon was too terrifying. She regretted not listening to Su Yu's words. Now, she had been killed by her own actions. After devouring you, I can replenish about 10% of my energy, the demon said coldly. The 10 scales on the surface of his body spun and shot toward Xinggu. Once they covered Xing Ji's body, she would probably be sucked dry in a few breaths' time. Xinggu panicked. Her mind was finally clear, and her heart was filled with regret. But, at this moment, who could save her? Su Yu looked at the demon coldly, his eyes darting around quickly. The demon laughed coldly. Don't be anxious. After you suck her dry, I will accompany you. Slow. Play. The last 3 words were uttered through clenched teeth. It was obvious how much he hated Su Yu. However, right at that moment, the world rumbled and the whole 8th level trembled violently. It was like the sound of the universe being split apart. It was loud and clear, so loud that even the deaf could hear it. The sound was filled with a masculine energy that could repel evil demons. The demon's palm stiffened, and his expression changed abruptly. This is disastrous thunder. Chapter 579. On the horizon, a white-robed figure holding a 5-colored jade seal was rushing over. Behind the white-clothed figure, a ferocious little purple beast was roaring as it chased after him. Wherever the malevolent little beast passed, thunder rumbled. Countless purple lightning bolts shot out from its body. The purple lightning gave off an unusually terrifying feeling. It was no weaker than the black tribulation fire in the Great Sun Punishment celestial painting. Master! The white-clothed figure rushed over in a hurry. His head and face were covered in dirt, and his clothes had been blasted into pieces by the lightning. His skin and flesh had split open in many places, and he seemed to be in a sorry and miserable state. That 5-colored jade seal was Su Yu's 5-elemental strong thunder seal. The white-robed figure was a disciple of the Yufeng sect and Jing Zijing's junior brother. That day in front of the stone statue forest, the two of them tried to do something to Xia Jingyu. Jing Zijing escaped, and this junior brother was subdued. Su Yu had arranged for him to carry out a secret task, and it had finally come in handy. Tribulation lightning? Why would there be tribulation lightning here? The demon's expression froze again. He said in a low voice, "Could it be the legendary thunder spirit that is sealed in the 5 mountains?" Lu Chui had once told Su Yu that there were 2 types of dangers in the 5 peaks. The first type was the protectors. They would do everything in their power to kill the intruders. The second possibility was even more dangerous, and that was that a thunder spirit was hidden in this mountain. Even almighty divine masters would be in great danger if they encountered it. Until now, no one knew where the thunder spirit was sleeping. Once it appeared, it would be extremely dangerous. While he was comprehending the land of legacy, Suyu had once felt a frightening aura sleeping underground. At that moment, Suyu knew that it was a lightning spirit. Among the 5 peaks, the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion was the scariest existence. Thus, after capturing this imperial wind sect disciple, he made some arrangements to awaken this slumbering thunder soul at the critical moment. The effect of the 5-element lightning seal was to absorb the tribulation lightning of the heavens and the earth. If it were to absorb this lightning spirit, then it would surely awaken it from its deep slumber. Now it would seem like everything was going as expected. The thunder spirit was infuriated, and it chased after the white-robed disciple who was holding the 5-elemental strong thunder seal. Whoosh! In a few breaths' time, the white-robed junior martial brother flew over. His demonic gaze locked onto the 5-elemental strong thunder seal in his palm. He sucked in a breath of air and said, "A prototype immortal artifact?" He hesitated for a moment. His eyes flashed with struggle, but he finally gave up. That lightning spirit was relentlessly chasing after the 5-elemental astral thunder seal. The white-clothed junior brother returned to Suyu's side without any obstructions and returned the 5-elemental strong thunder seal to him. He then stood behind Suyu in fear and looked at the thunderbolt in fear. When Suyu had given him the mission, he had only asked him to hide in the land of legacy. He had thought that it would be an ambush, but who would have thought that he would be asked to provoke the legendary Thunder Soul? That was an existence that could kill even almighty divine masters without hesitation. If it wasn't for the 5-elemental strong thunder seal's weak tribulation lightning that barely resisted the remaining might of the thunder spirit, he would have long since been annihilated. Well done. Suyu took the 5-elemental strong thunder seal and smiled. He then lifted his hand to dissolve the seal that the white-clothed junior brother had placed on him. "You can go now." The white-robed junior brother was startled. He was overjoyed and immediately left. The purple thunder spirit glanced at him, but was too lazy to bother with him. Its eyes were fixed on the 5-elemental strong thunder seal in Suyu's palm. It was extremely fearful of this object. The demon's gaze shifted. Before the thunder spirit had noticed him, he grabbed Xing Ji's neck. The demon's shadow flashed as he tried to retreat. However, at that moment, a pink mist suddenly appeared around the demon's body. It was a palm-sized pink Kylin, holding a 5-colored jade seal in its mouth. It was the 5-elemental strong thunder seal. When he looked at Suyu again, the 5-elemental strong thunder seal in his palm had already disappeared. The little Kylin happily held the thunder seal in its mouth and ran around the demon. The demon was stunned. A young immortal spirit? He was extremely shocked. However, before he could think further, his heart thumped. He slowly looked over and saw that the ferocious thunder spirit's attention had followed the 5-elemental strong thunder seal and landed on him. Evil creature! The demon's heart skipped a beat. In terms of restraint, thunder was the demon's true nemesis. Moreover, the one in front of him was the disastrous thunder. He roared angrily and struck the little Kylin with his palm. However, the little Kylin snorted softly through its nostrils, and the pink mist around its body flashed. Together with the 5-elemental strong thunder seal, it turned from a corporeal state into nothingness. No matter how strong the demon was, he could do nothing to the little Kylin. Moreover, after turning into nothingness, the little Kylin was still holding the thunder seal in its mouth and was still circling around the demon. The demon was furious. Without any hesitation, he ran for his life. However, the thunder spirit had already reacted. With a low roar, thunder rumbled in the heavens and the earth. A bolt of purple lightning, as thick as a human, descended with the disastrous will of heaven and earth. The demon's expression changed drastically. Without hesitation, he placed Xinggu in front of him, just like before. However, at that moment the demon's palm suddenly became empty. The little Kailan had opened its mouth and sucked in, snatching Xinggu away from the demon's hand. Then, it turned into nothingness again. As for the purple lightning, it struck the demon's body without the slightest obstruction. With a miserable scream, the disastrous thunder struck the area within 3 feet of the demon. Although he tried his best to block it, the scales on his body were all turned into nothingness. As for his soul body, it was as thin as a cloud. It was extremely weak. After absorbing the silver puppet with great difficulty, it had recovered to the later stage of the fairy realm. However, it had been struck back to its original state by a single lightning strike. Now, it was barely at the early stage of the fairy realm. The disastrous thunder's ability to restrain it was evident. The little Kailan hugged the 5 elemental strong thunder seal and laughed heartily in the air. It rolled around in the air and gestured with its hooves. It seemed like it was taking pleasure in the demon's misfortune. When the thunder spirit saw that its attack was useless against the lightning, it became angry and sent out another purple disastrous thunder. With a rumbling sound, the disastrous thunder descended once again. However, the little Kailan, which had turned into nothingness, was not affected at all. It smiled as it looked at the demon, who was screaming in pain. It clapped its hooves excitedly. After being struck by the disastrous thunder twice, the demon was only left with a thin layer of his soul. Even his consciousness had become fuzzy. It could be said that he was almost dead. Squeak! The thunder spirit fiercely waved its claws at the little Kailan. It seemed like it was quite angry. The little Kailan raised its head and extended one of its hooves. It then raised its largest claw, turned it around, and pointed it at the ground. Suyu was stunned by its action, and he didn't know whether to laugh or cry. The thunder spirit was startled and scratched its head in confusion. Although it didn't understand the meaning of this gesture, it instinctively knew that it wasn't something good. So, it couldn't help but grimace angrily. However, the thunder spirit wasn't stupid. It looked around and realized that the little Kailan was trying to provoke it on purpose, so it attacked the demon. The thunder spirit fiercely grinned and patted its butt. It then turned around and swaggered away. The little Kailan chuckled and returned to Su Yu's side with the 5 elemental strong thunder seal in its mouth. It then raised its head proudly, as if it was trying to show off. "I'll give you a reward later," Su Yu said. His gaze was still fixed on the demon. Su Yu's heart shook and a white flame shot out of his eyes, which engulfed the demon's body. The demon, who was in a coma, was burned by the soul flame without any resistance, and its soul body gradually disappeared. In the end, it turned into a mass of black smoke, which drifted down to the ground. Amidst the smoke and dust, a strand of black hair slowly drifted down. Su Yu's eyes flickered, and he waved his sleeves to catch the black hair. When he spread it out on his palm and examined it, he couldn't help but be surprised. The strand of hair was about 3 inches long, and it was as hard as a steel needle. There was a trace of the demon's aura in the silver feather. Could this be the demon's true form? Suyu was surprised. However, right at that moment, a weak voice transmitted from the depths of the ground. "No, that's just a strand of hair of the demon." The ground squirmed, and a half-zhang-tall ghost crawled out of the ground in an extremely weak manner. Based on its figure, it was obvious that it was the Ghost King, who had already been killed by the demon. Compared to before, the current Ghost King was extremely weak, and his power wasn't even at the level of a half-god. So, it wouldn't be difficult for Suyu to kill him. Suyu wasn't surprised that the Ghost King wasn't dead yet. After all, when the demon had crushed his body, Suyu had already discovered a wisp of the Ghost King's aura hidden underground. Now that he thought about it, the 10,000 zhang tall body was merely the Ghost King's golden cicada shedding its carapace. Are you saying that the demon I encountered was actually just a strand of hair of the real demon? Suyu was extremely terrified. Just a strand of hair was so frightening, so what exactly was a demon? The Ghost King nodded solemnly. Yes, it was just a strand of hair. That old fellow's soul body had both a Buddhist treasure and a strand of hair of the demon. If I'm not wrong, he must have accidentally stumbled into a relic where a demon and a Buddhist fought. He obtained the Buddhist treasure, but his body was also invaded by the strand of hair of the demon. Now these are all yours. The Ghost King's face was full of shock. He was amazed by how many tricks Suyu had hidden up his sleeves. The Great Sun Punishment fairy picture was one thing, but Suyu had already taken precautions against the disastrous thunder. Suyu's scheming was profound, and he was a cautious person. Even the Ghost King, who had experienced many trials and tribulations, couldn't help but admire him. This strand of hair of the demon contains pure demonic energy. It's a top-notch material for crafting demonic treasures. If it's handed over to a crafting master, it wouldn't be surprising for him to craft a top-grade spiritual artifact. In fact, with sufficient demonic materials, he might even craft a fairy artifact. A fairy artifact? Suyu's heart palpitated with excitement. He didn't even have many completed spiritual artifacts, let alone fairy artifacts. The value of the strand of hair of the demon was beyond imagination. Its value was no less than that of top-notch materials like the underworld pearl and the desolate sea lost pearl. The great battle had not been a waste of effort. After carefully sealing the strand of hair of the demon, Suyu raised his hand and grabbed the melted silver puppet. The silver puppet's energy had been completely devoured by the demon, and its consciousness had become very hazy. Now it was just a lump of extremely hard silver metal, no different from scrap iron. Thinking back to the time when this puppet was born, how awe-inspiring was it? Even Lu Chui, who was an almighty divine master, had to retreat. Sadly, even though it had devoured countless living beings crazily, its final fate was to be devoured by the demon. The Cycle of the Heavens. Chapter 580. His palm brushed past the silver metal and erased all of its remaining consciousness. At this point, the silver puppet had been reduced to a lifeless mass of silver metal. This metal was definitely a good material that was hard to come by, so Suyu naturally could not let it go. After searching his body for a while, Suyu unexpectedly found a ruler. It was the 6-directional ruler that Bai Yijian had used before. It contained Tianjizi's divine will and could predict the enemy's attacks in advance. It was extremely miraculous. Bai Yijian had been devoured by the silver puppet, so the item had naturally fallen into the silver puppet's hands. Now, it belonged to Suyu. Although Suyu didn't lack defensive magical treasures, Xian'er and Xiaojingyu did. After he finished searching, Suyu stuffed the silver metal into the 9-jade spiritual pearl, then started searching the nearby ground. In the messy ground, Suyu searched for a while and finally found the ghost-suppressing golden ring, which had been taken back by the soul old man. After going through a great battle, the ghost-suppressing golden ring had become much dimmer, and it had lost a lot of its spirituality. Only then did Suyu give up. He lifted his eyes to look at the Ghost King, who was standing motionless on the spot, and asked calmly, "Why aren't you leaving yet?" Ghost King looked up at the gap in the sky that was within reach. His face revealed a wry smile. "If I could leave, why would I take the risk to appear before you?" "What are you trying to say?" Suyu's eyes flickered. The Ghost King laughed bitterly. "That crack requires the abilities of the fairy realm to pass through. Now that my abilities have declined greatly, I hope that you can lend me a hand." Hearing this, Suyu was unmoved. "Do I need to help you?" "Hee, I naturally won't let you work for nothing. How about this, what do you want?" the Ghost King said. Suyu smiled. "That's more like it. I want 2 things. First, the Buddhist Saraira. Don't tell me that you really left it in the ghost clan of the Zhenlong continent. I don't believe it." Hearing this, the Ghost King's expression stiffened. His explanation to the Soul Old Man was that the Buddhist Sarira was in the Zhenlong continent. But was that really the case? After hesitating for a moment, the Ghost King reluctantly nodded. All right, as long as you can let me leave, the Buddhist relic is yours. He had indeed not left this item in the Zhenlong continent. Instead, he had brought it along with him. Second, give me a book on how to control ghosts. As the Ghost King, your understanding of ghosts far surpasses that of humans. Don't tell me you don't have one. The Ghost King's face darkened. You want to control me? And you're asking me for the method to control it? Brat, what do you take me for? Su Yu sneered. If I wanted to use your words, would I still need to waste my breath on you? With your current strength, it won't be hard to catch you. Shuar Su Yu gave the small Kylin a meaningful look, and it understood him. It opened its mouth and spouted a mass of air. A small figure then fell out of the air. It was Xinggu. Her face was covered in dirt and grime, and her face was filled with hatred and anger. When he sensed that he was out, he immediately retracted his strange expression and pretended to be abnormally obedient. Looking at this, the Ghost King heaved a sigh of relief. The Ghost King saw the scene where the heavenly ghost almost caused a great disaster. He understood. I see. I don't have the method to control ghosts, but there have been rebellious juniors among my subordinates. I do have some experience in taming them. If you don't mind, you can take it and read it. The Ghost King took out a jade pendant, placed it on his forehead, and imbued a wisp of consciousness into it. The consciousness contained the Ghost King's method of taming ghosts. If there was anyone who understood the ghost race the most, it would probably be the nobles themselves. Su Yu grabbed it and placed it on his forehead to have a look of satisfaction. Xinggu was observing his expression. When she heard that Su Yu was looking for a method to control her completely, she couldn't help but fly into a rage. Hatred rose in her heart, but she concealed it well. However, Su Yu still managed to capture the fleeting hatred. His eyes turned slightly cold. All right, take out the Buddha's relic and I'll send you off, Su Yu said. The Ghost King took out a jade box without hesitation. Within the jade box was the Buddha's relic, which was shining with golden light. The Buddha's nature within it was several times stronger than the ghost-suppressing golden ring. There is a wisp of my consciousness on the jade box. With a single thought, my consciousness will detonate the seal on the jade box and destroy the Buddha's relic, the Ghost King said slowly as he threw the jade box over. Did he tamper with it? Su Yu wasn't surprised. If the Ghost King really threw the jade box at him, Su Yu might really take the opportunity to kill him. How can I be sure that you won't detonate the seal when you return to Jojo? Su Yu asked. The Ghost King laughed. You don't have to worry about that. The consciousness of Jojo is unable to penetrate the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. So, once I return to Jojo, I won't be able to contact the consciousness on the jade box. You can then erase it at will. So that's how it is. Su Yu checked it, and after confirming that the wisp of consciousness could be erased at any time, he felt relieved. Xinggu, come here. Su Yu extended his palm and offered a drop of his blood essence, which he infused with the power of thunder. He then weaved a seal and placed it between Xingji's brows. Xinggu resisted instinctively, but when she met Su Yu's cold gaze, she had no choice but to clench her teeth and bear with it. She placed the seal between her brows. A bright red mark appeared between her brows, and it moved slightly like a cloud of fire. It made her, who was already adorable, even more lively. Go, lend him a hand and send him to Jojo. Su Yu waved his sleeves and calmly instructed. Xingji's eyes shone with excitement, but her face was expressionless as she nodded. Yes, master. When she finished speaking, she grabbed the Ghost King and rushed up to the sky, arriving near the gap. After an hour, the gap, which had been blasted open by the demon, was mostly closed. Now only one person could pass through. Xingji's whole body was surrounded by ghost energy, and she sent the Ghost King into the gap. the light screen flickered, and the Ghost King successfully passed through. Before he passed through, the Ghost King looked back at Suyu. It was unknown whether it was gratitude or some other emotion. He then said, "Leave the Jinlong continent as soon as possible. Otherwise, it will be too late." When he finished speaking, he completely disappeared into the light screen. The Ghost King left just like that. But after he left, Xing Ji's eyes shone, and she quickly followed him into the gap. Suyu gave a cold grunt. As expected, when he finished speaking, his heart moved, and the cloud of fire between Xing Ji's brows suddenly burned. The piercing pain in her soul caused Xinggu to let out a pathetic groan as she fell from the sky. But Xinggu clenched her teeth. "Humph, the great blood thunder technique that tames ghosts? Unfortunately, I have used this technique before, and I already have a way to break it." Although they were both ghosts, Xinggu actually knew the technique of the fire cloud mark, and she could even restrain it. The ghost energy in Xing Ji's body surged into the space between her brows, wrapping around the cloud of fire. Although the lightning within the cloud of fire quickly melted the ghost energy, it was not completely melted in a short period of time. Xinggu endured the intense pain, and used the short moment to rush into the gap. Suyu's expression did not change. "Have you forgotten something?" Her soul still contained the great Thunder Heart technique that Suyu had planted. As long as Suyu willed it, he would be able to destroy his soul. But Xinggu let out a sinister smile. "You can try." Suyu's heart moved, and he was shocked to realize that he could not contact the combined mark of the soul and lightning. "Humph, the storms that I have experienced are beyond your imagination. You are too naive to think that a mere soul mark can subdue me." Xinggu let out a long laugh, pointing a finger toward the space between her brows, pulling out the fire cloud mark and the mark in her soul. She clenched her fist, and with a creak, the two marks were completely destroyed. This woman was extremely experienced. To a normal person, planting a seal in their soul would give them absolute control. But to Xinggu, she had long since found a way to break it. She had been tolerating it, pretending to obey. Now that it had happened, she had successfully escaped, and was about to return to Jiuzhou. But Suyu, who was on the ground, had a calm expression. He calmly said, "Naive, is it?" Xing Ji's heart thumped, and a bad feeling welled up in her heart. At this moment, Xing Ji's brain suddenly felt an intense pain. A layer of white flames spread out from her soul silently. Her soul was being roasted by the soul flames, and she let out a heart-wrenching pain. With a pathetic shriek, Xinggu fell from the sky. She smashed into the ground, creating a giant pit. Fresh blood spurted from her mouth, and her body twisted crazily on the ground. She let out an endless roar of pain from her throat. "Stop, stop right now, I was wrong." Suyu was unmoved, coldly looking at her. "The great blood thunder technique I used was not just pure blood thunder. It also included my soul flames, which I injected into your brain. It seems like you haven't gone through enough storms and waves," Suyu said coldly. Suyu raised his hand and grabbed. A large portion of the soul flames in Xing Ji's body was taken away, but there was still a fist-sized raging flame that continued to roast her soul. Whoosh, with a flash of golden light, Suyu threw out the ghost-suppressing golden ring, trapping her. He then threw her into the 9-jade spiritual pearl. With a thought, he imprisoned her in a corner of the valley, making her suffer the pain of her soul being roasted. Xinggu could not bear the pain. Her small face turned pale, and she begged for mercy. "I won't do it again, master, please let me go." Suyu did not sympathize with her pitiful look. His gaze was calm. "Reflect on yourself here. When you are truly willing to call me master, that will be the time." Hearing this, Xinggu changed from begging for mercy to a vicious look. "You want to enslave me? When my master finds you, he will make you wish for death." "Master?" He had never thought that Xinggu would have another master. "Haha, it would be good if he could find you. That way, you can completely sever your relationship with him, Su Yu's expression was cold. After saying this, he turned and left. With Su Yu's current abilities, Xinggu was not much of a help. The reason he had tortured this woman was because, during the battle with the demons, this woman had been obstinate and self-opinionated. She had nearly caused their death. This had angered Su Yu greatly. This was a form of punishment for this woman. After doing this, Su Yu rested for a moment, recovering a little. Now that the silver puppet had been destroyed, the descendants of the guardians had been exterminated, and the most terrifying demon had been subdued by Su Yu. With the boundless pressure lifted, Su Yu felt unprecedentedly comfortable. Chapter 581. There was no one else on the Divine Sparrow stage. After the great battle in the Great Bone Palace and the terrifying battle that followed, it would be strange if they still dared to stay here. After entering the Legacy of Materials, the Ice Soul Divine Dream spell above the Great Bone Palace had disappeared. It was unknown whether it had been destroyed by the silver puppet when it broke through the spell or taken away by the cultivators on the Divine Sparrow stage. Su Yu's figure flickered as he entered the Great Bone Palace. The 2 sets of beast bones had disappeared, along with the lightning-based material, the desolate sea lost pearl, which Su Yu had not managed to collect in time. Su Yu was disappointed. I was too late. He just did not know who had taken the beast heads and the desolate sea lost pearl. The beast head was the bone of an all-creation old monster, so its value was obvious. If Su Yu wanted to repair the Eternal Stone King armor, he would need the bone materials of a divine master, and the bone of an all-creation demonic beast was an even better material. As for the desolate sea lost pearl, it was a top-notch lightning-based material. It was an important lightning-based material for refining the 5-elemental strong thunder seal into a fairy artifact. However, it was a pity that someone else had already taken it. Su Yu looked around in disappointment. Just as he was about to leave, he saw Baijia's corpse. He had been cut into 3 pieces by Su Yu's 3 small golden swords, and he was dead beyond belief. His corpse was still lying on the ground, motionless. With a thought in his mind, Su Yu flew down and started searching the corpse. Suddenly, he found a blood-red gourd, which had a ghost's face carved on it. It was the ghost gourd, a gourd of blood wine that Bai Yijian and his son had refined by sacrificing all of their clansmen. Baizha had only taken a sip of it, and his cultivation had already risen to the fairy realm. As he held the gourd, Su Yu felt a chill run down his spine. It was filled with the flesh and blood of the Bai clan. He had to drink it in order to increase his cultivation. Just thinking about it made him shudder. Was this any different from eating human flesh and drinking human blood? Su Yu resisted the urge to throw it away. After thinking about it for a while, he decided to keep it. The energy contained within was terrifyingly high. After looking around to make sure that he had not left anything behind, Su Yu flew into the air and left. I wonder how Xia Jingyu is doing. She should have successfully escaped, right? The silver puppet's target was him, so it probably didn't have the time to chase after Xia Jingyu, who had already escaped. Worry filled his heart. After such a short separation, Su Yu suddenly felt somewhat lonely. After all, it had only been 2 or 3 days since he had reunited with Xia Jingyu. However, he seemed to have experienced a very, very long time. Now that they were scattered all over the place, not knowing if they were alive or dead, they felt a sense of loss, as if they had lost something. After a long while, Su Yu looked at the Divine Sparrow stage. The training in the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion had come to an end. The only thing he had to do now was to attend the Exchange Festival at the Divine Sparrow stage. Su Yu still needed the lightning-avoiding silver pearl and the real dragon's blood to recover his eyes, but he still couldn't find them. So, he could only place his hopes on this great meeting. Calculating the time, there were still 4 days left. Su Yu pondered for a moment, then flew into the sky and chose a safe place to recover from his injuries. Half a day later, 2 sounds of something tearing through the air resounded above the great bone hall. Two women with graceful figures stood there quietly. One of them was shrouded in mist. Her figure was slender, and her figure was peerless. Her face under the mist was even more beautiful. At this moment, her beautiful face was filled with anxiety. She was Xia Jingyu, who had just returned. After she had settled down the Empire of Darkness's few great lords, she had immediately rushed back. The person beside her was the White Lotus faction's Xing Xuelian. Sister Jingyu, there aren't any remains here. So you must have successfully escaped, right? He had many magical treasures with him, so it's not impossible for him to escape. Xing Xuelian's beautiful eyes swept the surroundings as she comforted Xia Jingyu. Xia Jingyu furrowed her brows, her heart filled with worry. That ferocious creature devours all living beings, and it doesn't necessarily mean that he's safe. As she thought of this, Xia Jingyu's expression became sorrowful, and her eyes became moist. She was trying her best to hold back her tears. Even at such a dangerous moment, Su Yu had still placed her life above all else. She was silently moved, and her heart was filled with gratitude. She couldn't even remember how many times Su Yu had saved her, and she didn't know how she could ever repay him. Xing Xuelian seemed to be able to see through Xia Jingyu's expression, so she asked, "What is the relationship between you and Su Yu? It seems like you have a good relationship with him." Xia Jingyu came back to her senses and tried her best to remain calm. "Old friends? Hee, I've never seen it before. You've made arrangements for your funeral in advance, and you've even left your last words to your companion." Xing Xuelian giggled. Xia Jingyu had arranged a path of retreat for the Dark Lord, and she had also returned the Empire of Darkness's supreme treasure, the Feather Needle of Darkness. She had even asked them to pass on her last words to the King of Darkness. If she didn't return, those words would be her last words. She had obviously come back with the resolution to die, so how could her feelings be explained by the words of an old friend? Xia Jingyu's expression became flustered, and her face became slightly flushed. She tried to explain herself. "I didn't. We just had a good relationship, and it's impossible for anything to happen between us." Xing Xuelian seemed interested, and she chuckled as she said, "It seems like you really like him. If it were me, I would also be moved by him. His power, potential, appearance, and character are all outstanding, and he's quite rare. So, Sister Jingyu, isn't it strange that you like him?" Xia Jingyu opened her mouth, but didn't say anything in the end. After going through so many things, she was no longer like a young girl, who would bashfully hide her feelings. Moreover, her feelings, which were growing day by day, couldn't be covered up easily. Then, does Su Yu like you? Since he gave up his life to let you escape, you must be the one he loves, right? Xing Xuelian asked. Hearing this, Xia Jingyu was delighted. Does brother Su Yu like me? However, as she thought back to all the things that had happened between her and Su Yu, she realized that he didn't have any feelings for her. Her eyes became gloomy, and she laughed at herself. It would be great if he likes me, Xing Xuelian just laughed, but didn't say anything. She just looked at Xia Jingyu, and her eyes shone brightly. 4 days passed in the blink of an eye. The Divine Sparrow stage, which was originally empty, was gradually filled with people. When they sensed that the danger had passed, they all gathered together once again. Moreover, there were more than 500 or 600 people here, which was more than double the number when Su Yu had first come to the Divine Sparrow stage. Many of the faction's geniuses and wandering cultivators were gathered here. Miss Xing, may I ask when the exchange festival will start? A half-fairy expert respectfully asked Xing Xuelian. Many of the geniuses' experts had either died or left. Xing Xuelian had become one of the strongest experts present, and she was chosen by many of the geniuses to be the exchange festival's host. Xing Xuelian was happy to be the host, so she happily agreed to be the host for the time being. Let's wait for a while longer. Jiuzhou's mysterious heavenly stage is currently connecting to this place. At that time, there might be some seniors who will come to participate in the exchange. The mysterious heavenly divine pavilion's resources were bountiful, and even the old monsters in the outside world were tempted by them. So, before the disciples returned to their factions, they would exchange the treasures that they had found. This was an unwritten rule. Miss Xing, may I ask which seniors will come to this exchange? Another disciple asked, his eyes filled with anticipation. Xing Xuelian wore a faint smile as she asked, "What? Did you find an incredible treasure, and you can't wait to exchange it with the seniors?" The disciple's expression stiffened, and he smiled awkwardly. "Miss Xing, you must be joking. I haven't even been to the 5 Great Peaks, so how could I possibly find any treasure?" His expression was awkward, and he was extremely vigilant. Out of the corner of his eye, he could see at least 7 gazes locked onto him. This was the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, and there were no restrictions. Some of the people who were also probing him felt their hearts shiver, and they quietly retreated, keeping a low profile. Swoosh, swoosh. Numerous air-rending sounds could be heard, and a powerful aura flew over from the horizon. That aura was extremely close to the fairy realm, and it was a sign that someone was about to break through to the fairy realm. 3 crystal full? Many geniuses were shocked. From what they knew, it was rare to see a 3 crystal full genius enter the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Soul-seizing palaces Chou Ziming, Gui Yuan factions Yang Yidao. Purple Cloud Palace's mysterious woman, Lu Qi, and Red Blood Palace's Shangguan Qing. Other than them, there was no one else with 3 crystal full perfection. Judging from the aura, could it be that someone had gotten a chance to break through to 3 crystal full perfection? As the silhouette gradually became clearer, the newcomer's figure was revealed. Amidst the formation of the 3 gorgeously dressed girls, a 20-year-old man dressed in yellow, with a feminine face and a black moon mark on his forehead, broke through the air and arrived. He was as beautiful as a peerlessly beautiful woman. Heiyue Langjun? Someone recognized him and cried out in surprise. There were at least 309 wandering martial artists here, and the fact that everyone could call out this person's name at the same time showed how famous he was. Could he have also come to the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion? Many people exclaimed. It is rumored that Heiyue Langjun was chosen by one of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands' 3 great wandering martial artists, Mo Yang, and was taken in as a disciple. His cultivation reached the half-fairy realm a long time ago, and it seems like the rumors are true. It is also rumored that Heiyue Langjun is doted on by Mo Yang, and he probably has many treasures on him. He must have found many priceless treasures in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, and he will surely shine during this exchange festival. Heiyue Langjun landed gracefully, along with the crowd of beauties. His feminine and handsome face caused most of the women present to blush with shame. Heiyue Langjun's eyes were like water, and he looked around slowly. His voice was gentle as well. Hee, why don't I see any disciples from the Purple Cloud Palace or the Red Blood Palace? Instead, it is the White Lotus faction's disciples' turn to be the host? The crowd looked at each other in dismay. In fact, they did not know why Chou Ziming, Yang Yidao, Lu Chuyi, and Shangguan Qing'er, who were all top-notch geniuses, had all disappeared. How could they know that besides Lu Chuyi, the other 3 had already died? Yang Yidao had even died at Su Yu's hands. Xing Xuelian was neither happy nor angry when she heard this. Heiyue Langjun laughed. Fine, I will let you host it. You just have to host it impartially. Otherwise, I will not sit idly by. Hearing this, many wandering martial artists became excited. Heiyue Langjun was a wandering martial artist, and his ruthless words had given them great face. Chapter 582. For some reason, the few proud geniuses of their sect had all disappeared. Instead, they were intimidated by a rogue cultivator. At that moment, a loud laugh came from the sky. Ha ha ha! The exchange meet of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion has always been decided by the disciples of my faction. When has it ever been the turn of the wandering cultivators to be so insolent? Accompanying the maniacal laughter was a fierce aura that swept over. That aura faintly contained the barbaric aura of a demonic beast. It was a burly man with a curly beard. He was wearing a straw cape and a conical bamboo hat. His aura was extremely powerful, and he had reached the level of 3 crystal perfection. Under his feet was a crow covered in long black fur, and he was flying over. The crow also had a mysterious aura, and its cultivation had reached the level of a 2 crystals half-fairy. Hiss, it's Mr. Nanwu from the mysterious Iron Sect. Many of the disciples were overjoyed. Heavens! Wasn't he only at the 2 crystal perfection before he came? Did he encounter a fortuitous encounter and break through to the 3 crystal cores? Although Mr. Nanwu had just made a breakthrough not too long ago, and his power wasn't as great as Heyu Longjuan's, he still had a 2 crystals half-fairy realm ghost crow, which he had raised since he was young. Coupled with the fact that he came from a prestigious clan, his power was definitely not to be underestimated. So, if they really fought, he might not necessarily lose to Heyu Langjun. Furthermore, Mr. Nanwu was a disciple of a famous sect, so he would definitely have a lot of treasures with him. Since he was able to break through this time, he must have come across some kind of great opportunity. As for whether or not he had obtained some great treasures, no one could say for sure. Heyu Longjuan's feminine face darkened, and his expression turned hostile. Is that so? We'll see who's stronger at the exchange festival later. Ha ha ha. Mr. Nanwu only laughed, but didn't say anything. His disdainful expression was written all over his face. 2 hours later, more and more people arrived. As time passed, fewer and fewer people arrived. The Divine Sparrow stage was already packed. Those who could arrive in time must have already arrived. At this moment, a black figure attacked from the horizon. Dressed in black robes, he was wrapped up tightly from head to toe. At the same time, light surged out from his body, making it impossible for others to see his true form. He could only roughly see his cultivation level. He was a 2 crystals half-fairy. His appearance attracted many people's attention. Who is this person? Why haven't I seen him before? Looks like he's a rogue cultivator. Heyu Langjun and Mr. Nanwu glanced at each other, then turned their gazes away. Only Xing Xuelian revealed a shocked expression as she stared at the man. Even if Su Yu was here, he might not be able to recognize that the man in front of him was Gang Dalei, who had parted ways with him at the Thunder Emperor Mountain. After not seeing him for 2 months, he unexpectedly advanced to the 2 crystals half-fairy realm. One must know that before this, he was merely a demigod. He had encountered an unimaginable fortune. His appearance only caused a ripple, and no one paid too much attention to it. An hour later, there was no one else who came. Xing Xuelian's gaze drifted to the woman behind her. Sister Jingyu, how is it? Did Su Yu come? Xing Xuelian asked. Xia Jingyu raised her head and looked around nervously. Although many people had changed their clothes, Su Yu wasn't among them. If Su Yu didn't participate in this meeting, it was highly likely that he would die. Shaking her head, Xia Jingyu looked haggard. No one knew how she had managed to get through these 4 days. At every moment, her chest felt like it was being crushed by a giant rock. She couldn't eat or sleep in peace. In these 4 days, she had become so haggard that it made people's hearts ache. Now, the only place where Su Yu could appear was the exchange festival, but he wasn't there. The ominous feeling in her heart grew stronger and stronger. Hearing Xing Xuelian's question, she couldn't help but shed a tear. Her shoulders trembled as she whimpered, "Brother Yu, where are you?" Her voice was sad, empty, and emotionless. Xing Xuelian was startled. She sighed and turned her attention to the sky. At that moment, a rumbling sound could be heard from the top of the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion. A huge gap had appeared in the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion. However, under the influence of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, the gap immediately closed up. Just at that moment, a ring suddenly flew over and blocked the closing gap, stabilizing the gap that was 100 zhang wide. My treasure can only last for half a day. You must complete the exchange within half a day. A loud voice came from outside the gap. The voice contained a mighty power that made people want to worship it. It's the divine master of the Purple Cloud Palace, the Enyang Old Man. From the sound of the voice and the huge ring-shaped Dharma treasure, someone could tell who the owner was. It was the divine master of one of the two palaces, the Purple Cloud Palace. Xing Xuelian lifted her head and continued, "The exchange festival will now begin. The first segment will be free exchange. You can take out the items that you think are precious and exchange freely among yourselves. Jiuzhou will not interfere in any way." This segment was actually the most extensive segment. As soon as she finished speaking, the 800 or 900 people present each took out the treasures that they wanted to exchange and asked each other what they wanted. This was the simplest method, but it was also the least efficient. Using barter, one needed to be extremely lucky to get what they wanted in a short period of time. Moreover, without absolute confidence, no one would dare take out the precious treasures they had on them in front of everyone. Hence, this segment was a little long. Hundreds of thousands of miles away, in a secluded forest, Su Yu was sitting cross-legged, leaves and dust falling from his body. His eyes were closed, and his body did not move at all. He was like a statue. Suddenly, Su Yu opened his eyes slowly. His eyes were a little confused at first, but they gradually lit up. Finally, his eyes emitted a terrifying light. His aura was restored to its peak. Not only that, but the second spiritual crystal also showed signs of crystallization. If he focused on training for a period of time, he would definitely reach the level of a 2 crystals half-fairy. It seemed that the continuous battles had greatly benefited Su Yu. If he had a few more similar battles, it would be even easier for him to break through. Su Yu was very satisfied with his body's recovery and changes. As he looked at the sky and calculated the time, Su Yu's expression changed. "Oh no, the exchange festival has already begun." With a shake of his sleeves, Su Yu shook off the dust on his body. After some thought, he took off his returning principal faction uniform. The exchange festival would be watched by the strong men of Jiuzhou, and there might even be the higher-ups of the returning principal faction present. As a fake, he was afraid that he would be recognized immediately. With a flip of his palm, Su Yu took out a set of black clothes and a straw hat. His attire was very ordinary. At the same time, there was a flash of light beside him, and the little Kylin jumped out, transforming into Lu Chui. It was only covered with a veil, and it accompanied Su Yu. With such a disguise, surely no one would recognize him, right? "Let's go to the exchange festival." Su Yu's eyes shone as he flew away with the little Kylin. The lightning avoiding Silver Pearl and the blood of a real dragon. Su Yu had to get them at all costs. Chapter 583. On the Divine Sparrow stage, the exchange festival was proceeding in an orderly manner. It was just as they had expected. Although some decent treasures would occasionally appear during the private exchanges, they were only a small number compared to the number of people present. Most of the people were waiting for the next exchange, and their gazes would occasionally look at the gap in the sky. They didn't know which senior experts were looking at them at this very moment. After an hour, everyone was proceeding in an orderly manner. However, Jiuzhou had only given them half a day's time, so they couldn't delay this segment for too long. "Sirs, you still have a quarter of an hour left," Xing Xuelian reminded everyone. She then looked at Xia Jingyu, who was beside her. An hour had passed since the start of the exchange, but no one else had come forward. If nothing unexpected happened, Su Yu would have already been killed by the silver puppet. Xia Jingyu absent-mindedly looked into the distance, her heart feeling empty. In the Empire of Darkness, even in the loneliest years of her life, her heart had never been empty. This was because she had something to think about, and something to do. This was because she knew that that person was still living in some corner of the world, and she was silently using her own eyes to look at the prosperity of the world in his stead. She had felt lonely back then, but she had never felt lonely. Now, her heart was filled with boundless loneliness. Her heart was at a loss, and she felt as if she had lost her sense of direction, goal, and color. The person she had always looked forward to had disappeared from her life. How could she move forward? However, in her heart, there was still a glimmer of hope that Suyu had not died, and that he had successfully escaped from the silver puppet's pursuit. This was her only hope. After the time it would take to brew half a cup of tea had passed, the individual exchanges had finally come to an end. The people present naturally quieted down, their faces filled with anticipation. The next segment was the most important segment of the exchange festival, and it was likely that Jiuzhou's seniors would participate in it. Xing Xuelian looked around and was quite satisfied with their expressions. She then smiled and said, "Now, the second segment of the exchange festival will begin. Open exchange." Swoosh. Xing Xuelian took out a large number of bamboo sticks, then used her vital energy to mark each of them. The number ranged from 1 to 900, which was the total number of people present. Each of you will need to draw a bamboo stick. According to the order of the number, you will take out the treasures that you want to exchange and say what you want to exchange, whether it is crystals or specific treasures. If the people below the stage happen to have something that can be exchanged and are willing to exchange, they can exchange directly. If there are many people competing at the same time, the one with the highest value will win. This is the principle of this exchange meet, and it has also been the principle of all previous exchange meet. No one is allowed to go against it. If anyone dares to threaten or rob in public, they will be punished by the elders of the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion when they return to Jiuzhou's mysterious heavenly stage. At that time, the confiscation of treasures would only be a light punishment. If the circumstances are serious, they might even be executed in public. I don't think I need to elaborate on this point. Xing Xuelian's voice wasn't loud, but it was exceptionally intimidating when it reached the ears of the crowd. The success of the exchange festival was built on order, and this order was gradually perfected by the previous festivals. Anyone who dared to use threats or other means to force the other party to exchange items would face severe punishment when they returned to the 9 provinces' Heavenly Secrets platform. In the past, there had been a disciple who thought that he had a strong backing and tried to rob others at the exchange festival. In the end, he was killed by the elders of a few factions. His so-called backing was meaningless in the face of the anger of the elders of the various factions. If the people present were all elders of the same faction, even if the disciple had violated the rules, the other elders would most likely give him some face for the sake of his master. However, the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion was the training ground for all the factions in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. There were many people from the factions present, and the elders of the other factions did not need to give face to the disciple's master. It could be said that the exchange meet here was even stricter than the exchange meet in Jiuzhou. There were too many supervisors. Even without Xing Xuelian's reminder, the disciples had already been warned by their elders to not violate the rules. Let the drawing of lots begin. Xing Xuelian threw the bamboo lots into the air. 800 to 900 people flew up at the same time, fighting for the bamboo lot. The higher one's ranking was, the better it would be. If it was too high up, there would be no way to compare the treasures they took out, and they would not be able to display their value. The best ranking would be after the 5th place. The 6th bamboo lot is mine. Who dares to fight for it? Heiyue Langjun did not fight for it among the crowd. Instead, he stood in his original position and spoke in a soft voice. Mr. Nan Wu also did not participate in the fight. Instead, he laughed and said, "I want the 6th bamboo lot. Who will get it for me?" Their conversation was exceptionally clear amidst the hustle and bustle. Everyone's expression changed. A clever wandering cultivator, who was about to retreat from the fight, threw away the bamboo lot in his hand without thinking. That was because the bamboo lot was the sixth one that the two half-fairies were fighting for. He did not want to offend Heiyue Langjun or Mr. Nanwu, so he could only throw it away. Swoosh! A beautiful young lady flew over and grabbed the bamboo lot in her hand. Her face was filled with joy as she said, "Langjun, I have caught it for you." Puff! Just as she finished speaking, a strong palm force came from behind her, causing Heiyue Langjun's maid to spit out blood and fly backward. The sixth bamboo lot in her hand was also taken away. The person who had taken it away was not just anyone, but a disciple of a famous faction. A sneak attack was indeed beneath one's status. "Mr. Nanwu, I am Jin Chen from the Netherworld faction." Jin Chen was a man with a gloomy expression. He handed over the bamboo lot with both hands. Mr. Nanwu laughed and said, "Well done! How dare you sneak attack me?" Heiyue Langjun's eyes flashed as he turned into a ball of light and dashed toward Jin Chen. Mr. Nanwu still had a smile on his face. His whole body flashed with blood qi, and an extremely strong physical strength surged through his meridians like a flood. Then, it turned into a fierce fist force that was as strong as a tiger. He punched out. The formless power of his physical body had a faint blood-red color to it. It was like a ferocious tiger as it charged toward Heiyue Langjun. Crackle! A pink mist flashed around Heiyue Langjun's body. Like cotton, it dissolved the strong physical strength. However, his attack was greatly weakened. Jin Chen took advantage of this opportunity to hide behind Mr. Nanwu. Although he looked nervous, his expression showed that he had expected this to happen. He had offended Heiyue Langjun to help Mr. Nanwu get the sixth bamboo lot. For the sake of his reputation, Mr. Nanwu would not allow Heiyue Langjun to hurt him. Heiyue Langjun's eyes turned cold and he said, "Very well. Now let's see what kind of confidence you have, since you have just broken through to the half-fairy realm." Mr. Nanwu let out a long roar and said, "Do you think I am afraid of you?" Chapter 584. Mr. Nanwu glanced at Xing Xuelian. Although he didn't say anything, his warning was clear. "Mind your own business," Heiyue Langjun said coldly. "My business is none of your business." She couldn't intimidate the people present. The rest of the people didn't dare to get involved in the battle between them. The two of them were ready to fight at any moment. Swoosh! Suddenly, the bamboo stick in Mr. Nanwu's hand flew towards Heiyue Langjun. Mr. Nanwu was caught off guard by this strange scene. If one looked closely, they would see a spirit body that looked like a little ghost grabbing the bamboo stick and flying back to Heiyue Langjun's hand. Heiyue Langjun's hands, which were behind his back, had formed a strange seal. Mr. Nanwu's smile froze. He was enraged. Despicable! Then, a black shadow flashed in the sky. A black crow flew across the sky at supersonic speed and caught up to the little ghost to snatch the bamboo stick. Heiyue Langjun laughed coldly. "Isn't a sneak attack by your people considered despicable?" As he spoke, he flew into the sky and slapped the ghost crow. "How dare you!" Mr. Nanwu snorted and chased after the crow. However, at that moment, thunder rumbled in the sky. A bolt of lightning as thick as a water bucket fell from the sky and landed on the ground. The thunder rumbled and shocked all the evil spirits in the area. The little ghost and the ghost crow were both ghosts. The thunder caused the two ghosts to tremble, and their eyes were filled with fear. The people present were also shocked by the thunder. Where did the thunder come from? Ah, look! There are people in the thunder. Some of those who had cultivated eye techniques had extraordinary eyesight. To their horror, they discovered that two humanoid creatures had walked out of the rumbling thunder. What? There are people? Who is controlling the thunder? Boom! Just as everyone was shocked, a blinding white light flashed above their heads on the Divine Sparrow stage just as the lightning struck down from the sky. The air was instantly filled with a burning aura. Then, there was a thunderous roar that shook the heavens and descended with a loud rumble. That voice was so powerful that it shook their Shuang to the point that they were stupefied. Only a buzzing sound was left in their ears. Those with weaker cultivations were directly shaken by the thunder to the point that their qi and blood surged, and they almost spat out a mouthful of blood. Even Heiyue Langjun and Mr. Nan Wu, who were fighting against each other, stopped at the same time. They looked at the thunderbolt descending from the sky with an indescribable shock. What kind of divine being had descended? Such a method was too domineering. Under everyone's attention, two figures descended from the sky amidst the dazzling lightning. A man in black clothes and a bamboo hat made it hard to see his face clearly. Even his body was surrounded by lightning. The other was a girl in pink. Her eyes were as big as pearls, sparkling and translucent. Her appearance was shockingly similar to Lu Chui of the Purple Cloud Palace. However, the pink-clothed girl in front of him was only 16 or 17 years old. Compared to the mature Lu Chui, she was much younger. In order to hurry on with his journey, Su Yu had used the thunder escape along the way. Everyone stared at the two people who had appeared and exchanged glances. Who were these two people? The way they had appeared just now was too domineering, as if they did not care about the safety of the people present at the scene at all. Although the crowd was angry, they did not dare to voice it out. To be able to control such lightning, their abilities must be terrifyingly strong. Are they handing out bamboo sticks? Su Yu glanced at the bamboo sticks that were still floating in the air. He understood the situation clearly. Suddenly, he saw the little ghost who was holding the bamboo stick not far away. He waved his hand and said, "Give it to me." At that moment, Su Yu's body was still filled with lightning arcs. Even his gaze seemed to contain the power of lightning. When the little ghost heard the voice, he trembled in fear. He walked over to Su Yu and held up the bamboo stick. Heiyue Longjuan's face turned cold. "Come back." However, the little ghost was afraid of Su Yu's lightning. He looked back at his master and handed the bamboo stick to Su Yu. Heiyue Longjuan's face turned murderous. "Who are you? Aren't you going too far?" Mr. Nan Wu also looked displeased. "Brother, the bamboo stick belongs to me. Please return it." Su Yu raised his eyes to look at the two of them. His eyes were calm. However, Heiyue Langjun and Mr. Nan Wu could sense that Su Yu did not even look at them. It was as if Su Yu was looking at thin air. It was not a deliberate act of arrogance, but a subconscious act of ignoring them. This person's arrogance infuriated the two of them. One of them was the representative of the wandering martial artists, while the other was the leader of the famous faction's disciples. How could they not be angry when they were ignored by a kid of unknown origin? Su Yu did not care about their anger at all. He held the bamboo stick in his hand, turned around, and was about to descend. "Humph! You want to leave?" Heiyue Langjun coldly snorted. A pink mist condensed in his palm. It was dreamy and had a strong hallucinogenic effect. If it entered Su Yu's body, it would definitely cause him to fall into an illusion. Mr. Nan Wu did not want Heiyue Langjun to succeed first. So, he also attacked quickly, his whole body's strength surging out. Su Yu's face turned cold. The two of them were too domineering. After his cultivation had increased, the power of his thunder escape had become stronger than before. Coupled with the fact that he was in a hurry, he could not control his thunder escape perfectly, which had affected the crowd below him. As for the bamboo stick, since the two of them were fighting over it, it did not belong to either of them. Su Yu had casually taken it, but the two of them had attacked him together. It would have been fine if they had attacked him together, but when they attacked, they did not show any mercy. Rumble, swoosh. The two of them attacked Su Yu from the left and right. The two strongest martial artists, who were close to the fairy realm, attacked at the same time. With such a joint attack, who would dare to easily block them? Even if Chou Ziming and Yang Yidao were here, they would have to retreat. However, a scene that silenced the entire place appeared. Su Yu did not move. Only when the two of them attacked him at the same time did he extend both of his palms. A ball of purple lightning formed in each of his palms, and he pointed his finger forward. In Heiyu Longjuan's senses, Su Yu's left finger suddenly filled the sky with thousands of lightning bolts. It was like a heavenly tribulation, and its power was terrifying. Then, he felt an intense pain in his chest. He had been struck by an extremely powerful lightning bolt. His whole body stiffened as if he had been electrocuted, and he was sent flying. In Mr. Nan Wu's senses, it was a completely different scene. He felt as if countless swords of lightning had shot out from Su Yu's finger, surrounding him. Then, he felt an intense pain in his palm. A bolt of lightning had pierced through his palm, and he was sent flying by the huge force. In the eyes of everyone present, Su Yu had only extended 2 fingers casually, and he had sent 2 half-fairies of top class flying. No one doubted that Su Yu could kill the 2 of them. Su Yu had obviously held back. With the power of a single person, he had suppressed the wandering martial artists and the talents of the prestigious families. His valiance shocked everyone at the scene. Who is he? Where did he come from? Is there such a person among us wandering martial artists? Chapter 585. Surprise appeared on Xing Xuelian's face as she looked at Su Yu in confusion. Even she couldn't understand where this black-clothed youth had come from. Only Xia Jingyu's dazed eyes lit up with a glimmer of light. She could feel a familiar aura from Su Yu's body. It was Su Yu's aura. However, when she saw the beautiful young lady standing beside Su Yu, her eyes dimmed. Su Yu did not know such a woman. However, Su Yu's appearance had made Xia Jingyu look forward to it. Half of her attention was focused on Su Yu. "Do you still have any objections?" Su Yu asked calmly as he looked at the 2 of them. Heiyu Langjun was shocked. When he had been struck, he had felt like an ant being stepped on by an elephant. The gap between him and this person was simply too great. Mr. Nan Wu was also shocked. Su Yu's immortal-level cultivation technique was indeed shocking. However, his intuition told him that this was only the tip of the iceberg. The 2 of them were afraid and kept their distance. How could they dare to ask for the bamboo stick? Su Yu looked away and floated down to a corner of the Divine Sparrow stage with the small Kylon. However, everyone present could feel that the corner was the center of the Divine Sparrow stage. Xing Xuelian looked away and waited for a moment before saying, "Since this is the case, let the exchange festival begin." What they did not know was that the mysterious heavenly stage was located at the gap. This place was no different from the mysterious heavenly stage on the other side of the Zhenlong continent. However, there were many people here. There were at least 20 strong martial artists. Each of them was at least a fairy realm expert. There were even a few divine masters among them. One of them was Lu Qi, who had slept with Su Yu before. She was sitting cross-legged in the corner, her eyelids twitching. She was clearly feeling uneasy. Do you have something on your mind?" A gentle voice filled with concern could be heard. Lu Qi's eyelids twitched a few times, but she still chose to open them. Pain, hatred, and an indescribable emotion flashed past her eyes. Lu Qi raised her eyes, and a handsome, refined, and gentle face was reflected in her eyes. Her bright eyes were naturally filled with warmth, and her cold and arrogant face was flushed with shyness. "I'm fine, Brother Taishu," Lu Qi called out softly, her eyes filled with deep infatuation. If Su Yu were here, he would surely know that the handsome and elegant youth before him was the name that Lu Qi had called out after her first time had been stolen. It was the name of her beloved. On the other side, many experts looked over. Regardless of whether they were men or women, young or old, all of them revealed looks of envy. Lu Qi, the heaven's favored girl, and Gu Taishu, the dragon among men. Both of them are geniuses of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands that only appear once in 1,000 years. They are only 20 years old, yet they have already reached the almighty divine master realm. Gu Taishu, in particular, has already reached the late stage of the Almighty Divine Master realm. He is already preparing to break through to the All Creations realm. Indeed, the two of them are a match made in heaven. Only they are worthy of each other. I heard that the patriarch of the Purple Cloud Palace, who is also Gu Taishu's master, the true man of the Purple Cloud, is preparing to host their wedding personally. At that time, it will definitely be a grand occasion for the 18 blessed and heavenly land. That is only natural. The true man of the Purple Cloud is one of the only two all creations venerables in the 18 blessed and heavenly land. It is rare for him to come out of seclusion even once in dozens of years. If he were to appear, it would naturally be a grand occasion. Hearing the discussions, Lu Chui felt a sweetness in her heart. However, she realized that she was no longer pure. Her heart turned cold, and her eyes gradually dimmed. You have been stuck at the early stage of the Almighty Divine Master Realm for some time now. You are going to break through to the middle stage, so you need to calm your mind. You mustn't let any distracting thoughts get entangled in your mind. Otherwise, it will be difficult for you to break through, Gu Taishu said softly. As he looked at Lu Chui's strange expression, he frowned slightly, and a look of displeasure flashed in his eyes. He didn't like the fact that Lu Chui was hiding things from him. At that moment, the few fairies who were watching the exchange festival exclaimed in surprise. Thunder escape? Isn't that the lost technique of the Thunder Emperor? Could it be that the Thunder Emperor's inheritance has finally been found? The Thunder Emperor was quite famous in Jiuzhou, so his Thunder escape technique was immediately recognized. The Thunder Emperor? Gu Taishu muttered softly. He wasn't interested. However, all of a sudden, the fairies who were watching were startled. It was as if they had just witnessed something shocking. They all turned around to look at Lu Chui and Gu Taishu. Gu Taishu furrowed his brows. What are you looking at? When they heard him, the few fairies all had odd expressions on their faces. They all moved aside and didn't reply. It was as if they were afraid of offending him. Gu Taishu was slightly displeased, but he still wore a calm expression as he walked forward. He could clearly see the divine sparrow stage's every movement through the giant halo. He's just a lightning-based cultivator. Not bad. Gu Taishu casually glanced at Su Yu, who had easily defeated Heiyue Langjun and Mr. Nan Wu. However, he suddenly stopped speaking. His brows gradually furrowed, and his gaze locked onto Lu Chui, who was beside Su Yu. Do you know this lad? Gu Taishu looked at her warmly. Lu Chui was startled, but she still stood up and walked over to look at the divine sparrow stage. When his gaze fell on Su Yu, his pupils contracted, and a shred of hatred welled up in his heart. However, it was quickly replaced by bitterness. She couldn't forgive Su Yu, but she also couldn't hate him. Then, she swept her gaze over the stage and discovered that there was a young girl standing beside Su Yu. Her appearance was exactly the same as hers. Apart from the fact that she seemed young and immature, which didn't match her temperament, everything else was exactly the same. Lu Chui was startled. Why is there a young girl who looks like her by Su Yu's side? When she carefully looked at Gu Taishu, she discovered that his expression was somewhat unsightly. Brother Taishu, he is the returning principal faction's disciple, Yu, whom I got to know when I was down there. Apart from that, I don't have any relations with him, Lu Chui said guiltily. She pursed her lips. She didn't dare to tell him that she had already lost her chastity to Su Yu. What's the matter with that young girl? Gu Taishu squinted his eyes. After all, who could tolerate a strange man carrying around a woman who looked like his fiancée? Lu Chui stared at him for a moment, and a golden light flickered in the depths of her eyes. She then said, "It seems like a shape-shifting spiritual beast, but it has taken my appearance." As she spoke, Lu Chui had a strange feeling in her heart. Why did Yu ask a living creature to take my appearance and keep her by his side? Could it be that he fell in love with me after that one night? As she thought of this, The resentment in the depths of Lu Chuyi's heart faded slightly. Although he had taken her chastity, he wasn't a heartless person. After she left, he had even asked the living creature to take her appearance. Chapter 586. However, Lu Chuyi did not know that it was not Su Yu's request but the little Kylan's own transformation. This misunderstanding was really a coincidence. I know it's a living creature. I just want to ask why his spiritual pet would transform into you? Could it be that, after spending some time with him, he started having improper thoughts about you? Gu Taishu stared at Su Yu with an unfriendly expression. Lu Chuyi's expression was unnatural. She stroked her hair and said unconfidently, "Maybe, slap?" Gu Taishu slammed his palm on the ring. A cold light flashed in his eyes, which did not match his elegant demeanor. He trusted Lu Chuyi and did not think that she had done anything wrong behind his back. He was angry because everyone in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands knew that Lu Chuyi was going to be his woman. How dare someone try to take advantage of her? Good, when he comes out, I want to ask him who taught him. The Gui Yuan faction was under the jurisdiction of the Purple Cloud Palace. Even the master of the Gui Yuan faction had to call Gu Taishu uncle. How could a disciple of the Gui Yuan faction have the guts to take advantage of Gu Taishu's woman? Lu Chuyi's expression changed slightly. She hesitated for a moment, then said weakly, "Brother Taishu, forget it. I don't think he did it on purpose. He should know the difference between us. I'm sure he will understand if I tell him personally. There is no need for you to do it yourself." Gu Taishu calmed down after hearing this. Indeed, it was not appropriate for him to do it himself. Many people present would laugh at him. Gu Taishu nodded and retracted his gaze. He walked up to the third Almighty Divine Master from the Purple Cloud Palace, the Yinyang old man, senior brother Yinyang. "Are you sure that the real spirit divine egg that Divine Master 2mo stole back then is in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion?" Gu Taishu was very concerned about this. The Yinyang old man was the Divine Master who had used the ring to fill the gap. His hair was white, his left eye was black, and his right eye was white. He looked like a pair of yin and yang fish eyes. He was another disciple of the true man of the Purple Cloud. His strength had also reached the level of a terrifying late-stage Divine Master. "Junior brother, you don't have to worry. My eyes can see through yin and yang, and I can communicate with dead souls. I have confirmed from the dead souls in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion that Divine Master 2mo died in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. The real spirit divine egg that he stole from my teacher is also in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Moreover, according to the information we obtained, the Red Blood Palace's Mo Tianxian ordered the Soul Seizing Palace to look for the Divine Master 2mo's remains. However, for some unknown reason, the two groups of people sent by Mo Tianxian have both died. The Soul Seizing Palace's Chou Ziming and the Red Blood Palace's Shangguan Qing'er didn't appear at the Exchange Festival this time. If I'm not mistaken, something unexpected must have happened. I just don't know if they found the remains of Divine Lord 2mo. Upon hearing this, Gu Taishu frowned deeply. That real spirit divine egg is the most important thing this time. Even if we don't get it, we won't allow the Red Blood Palace to get it. As they spoke, both of them simultaneously looked at the three Almighty Divine Masters on the other side. They were shrouded in demonic energy, and it was difficult to see their figures clearly. Seeing that Gu Taishu's attention had been diverted, Lu Chuyi heaved a long sigh of relief. Her beautiful eyes shifted slightly, and she secretly observed Su Yu through the ring. At the Divine Sparrow stage, the disciple who had drawn the first lot stood up and walked to the front, facing the crowd. Swoosh, with a flip of his palm, he took out a golden fruit. It was the incredible feather spiritual pomegranate. Within the golden color there was a tinge of green. This meant that it was not fully mature yet. Compared to the 80-year-old incredible feather spiritual pomegranate that Su Yu had planted, it was at least 2 grades lower. I want to exchange the incredible feather spiritual pomegranate for 2 crystals. I will not sell it for less." As soon as he said this, many of the people below the stage became interested. TSK, only 2 crystals. Only in a place like the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion would this person be so desperate to get rid of it that he would sell it for 2 crystals. Otherwise, in Jojo, he would need at least 3 crystals. We Outer Sanctum disciples can only get 1 vital energy crystal every year, and we need 3 years of accumulation before we can exchange for it. Moreover, we might encounter a situation where there is a price but no supply. "I want it!" Someone immediately called out. "Wait, I want it too. I'll add on a crystal fragment." A peak half-god wandering martial artist had a passionate look in his eyes. The incredible feather spiritual pomegranate was extremely important to people like him, who urgently needed to refine spirit energy and condense vital energy. 2 crystals, 2 fragments, another wandering martial artist shouted. But as soon as he said this, people began to call out bids one after another. In fact, 40% of them were disciples from prestigious factions. It could be seen that the incredible feather spiritual pomegranate was a rare item even within the prestigious factions. In the end, the newly matured incredible feather spiritual pomegranate was sold for 2 crystals and 9 crystal fragments. Suyu, who was observing from the side, also understood the use and value of the so-called crystals. Suyu was not unfamiliar with crystals. The Eternal Stone King armor had once had a red crystal, and the vital energy it emitted could activate the armor. But now, it seemed that not only could crystals be used as a source of vital energy, they could also be used as currency in the Jojo continent. This discovery made Suyu overjoyed. If Ling Xiaotian wanted to recover, he would need a large amount of vital energy. According to what Yun Yazi had said, the only way to save him on the Zhenlong continent was to break through to the fairy realm. At that time, vital energy would descend and Ling Xiaotian could be saved. But now there was a more feasible way, to collect a large amount of crystals that contained vital energy. In Jojo, crystals were also very valuable items. They were divided into low-grade crystals, middle-grade crystals, and high-grade crystals. Usually, middle-grade crystals contained powerful vital energy, and they were not used as currency. Instead, they were used for cultivation. Finally, high-grade crystals were said to be rare in Jojo. Only low-grade crystals were used as currency. However, many people used them for cultivation, so they would not easily use them as currency. Hence, there were more crystal fragments. 10 crystal fragments could be exchanged for a complete crystal stone. Most people used fragments to exchange for it. After understanding this, Suyu was filled with anticipation. He had plundered many treasures in the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion, and he did not know how many crystals he could exchange for. Second, Jin Chun. Xing Xuelian said. Jin Chun stepped forward and mysteriously took out a jade box. He had an enigmatic smile on his face. "I believe that the great battle that took place nearby 4 days ago is still fresh in everyone's memory?" His words caused the noisy crowd to come to an abrupt stop. Everyone's faces were filled with fear. 4 days ago, disastrous fire and disastrous thunder had appeared one after another. Demonic energy had shocked the heavens, and a sea of blood had appeared. That mighty scene had shaken the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion several times. It was as if doomsday had arrived. Everyone in the mysterious Heavenly Divine Pavilion knew that an earth-shattering great battle had taken place there. Now that it was mentioned in front of everyone, who could remain calm? Chapter 587. Jin Chun took in everyone's gazes and was very satisfied. He smiled mysteriously and said, "Coincidentally, I was in the vicinity of the battle that day. Thus, when the battle ended, I was the first to rush to the scene." What? He was the first one? Everyone present couldn't help but look at the jade box at the same time. Most of them had actually investigated the battlefield, but very few of them had gained anything. Only the people who had come first had their own gains. Could it be that Jin Chun had discovered something incredible? That's right. Inside this jade box is a treasure that I found. Jin Chun opened the jade box and a fragment slowly floated out. That fragment seemed to be formed from pure lightning. Even though it was broken, it was still flickering with lightning. A fragment of a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact? Someone exclaimed. Semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts were magical treasures that only fairy realm experts could possess. Other than a few disciples with powerful backgrounds, ordinary half-fairies still mainly used divine artifacts. A semi-manufactured spiritual artifact fragment was considered a decent treasure. It's indeed very good, but there's only one piece. It doesn't seem to be that precious, right? Mr. Nan Wu was somewhat angry in his heart. Jin Chun had actually hidden such an item from him? Jin Chun smiled bitterly and replied, "Of course, one fragment is nothing, but what if there are hundreds of them? According to my speculation, a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact was crushed and destroyed in that battle." After saying that, Jin Chun waved his hand, and a large number of fragments floated in the air. There were more than 100 of them. Su Yu was dumbfounded. Weren't these fragments the Cosmos Thunder Sword? After being crushed by the demon, 1/3 of the fragments were permanently destroyed and turned into nothingness, while the rest were fragmented. Sheng Xuelian was also shocked and immediately looked at Xia Jingyu. At this moment, Xia Jingyu's face was as white as snow. She could tell at a glance that these were the fragments of the Cosmos Thunder Sword. She had personally witnessed Su Yu obtain this sword when she and Su Yu were adventuring in the Dragon Abyss of the 9 Underworlds. This sword was a memory shared by both of them. How could she be mistaken? If Su Yu was still alive, why would the Cosmos Thunder Sword shatter? The sword shattered and the man died. The last strand of hope in Xia Jingyu's heart completely collapsed in front of the shards of lightning. Regardless of whether she believed it or not, Su Yu had already met with a mishap. She had also witnessed the terrifying scene that day. How could Su Yu still be alive under such earth-shattering might? His body trembled uncontrollably as his spirit crumbled. His eyes were empty and vacant. "No, he won't," Xia Jingyu murmured. She staggered to her feet, turned into a cloud of water vapor, and disappeared into thin air. Sheng Xuelian looked in the direction of the battle between humans and devils 4 days ago, and sighed softly. She didn't chase after them. Su Yu only noticed a flash of water vapor. It seemed like someone had left, but he didn't pay much attention to it. "State your price." Heyu Longjuan's eyes flashed with interest. It was not that he had never seen a spirit artifact before, but a lightning Dao spirit artifact was rare. "Tell me, I also want to see what's so special about this sword." Mr. Nan Wu's lips curled upwards. The others all revealed looks of interest. 10 crystal stones. Jin Chun said a number. Heyu Langjun and Mr. Nan Wu both furrowed their brows. It was obvious that the price was too high. If it was a complete semi-manufactured spiritual artifact, it would probably cost more than 100 crystal stones. However, now that it was only a broken one, 10 crystal stones was indeed too expensive. 10 crystal stones. Just as they were hesitating, a rough voice suddenly shouted out. Su Yu looked over and saw a person wrapped in a black robe. That voice was very familiar. After thinking for a moment, Su Yu used his soul eyes to see through the black robe. He then saw the head of a ferocious flood dragon. Gang Dalei. Su Yu almost cried out in alarm. The person who had bid was actually Gang Dalei. He didn't expect that they would meet here. However, after thinking about it for a moment, Su Yu gave up on the idea of meeting him. He was currently hiding his identity, so it wasn't appropriate for him to show his face. Hearing that someone was bidding, Heyu Langjun and Mr. Nan Wu hesitated for a moment before joining the bidding. However, the competition wasn't that intense. After Gang Dalei bid once, he didn't make another sound. Among the people present, Only Heiyue Langjun and Mr. Nan Wu could take out 10 crystal stones in one go and continuously increase the price. If an ordinary person could accumulate 10 crystal stones in 5 years, it would be considered pretty good. If they were unlucky, they could only accumulate 10 crystal stones in 10 or 20 years. So, how could they be willing to spend it on a fragment of a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact? As for the elders who were watching the auction from the mysterious heavenly stage, they were all at least at the fairy realm and possessed their own semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts. So, why would they be interested in such a fragment? The two of them continued to compete. In the end, Heiyue Langjun couldn't reconcile with them and was bought by Mr. Nan Wu for 11 crystal stones and 6 fragments. While Xing Xuelian was announcing the ownership of the fragment, she looked at Su Yu with interest and asked, "Mister, you possess lightning techniques, but aren't you interested in this Thunder Sword's fragment?" Su Yu clicked his tongue. This was the item that he had given up on, so why would he be interested in it? However, if he had known that even a fragment could be sold for 11 crystal stones, he would still have kept the Cosmos Thunder Sword's fragment. Let's continue. If there is something that interests me, I will naturally bid for it, Su Yu said calmly. Xing Xuelian looked at Su Yu deeply, then continued, "Next, let's invite Heiyue Langjun." All of a sudden, Xia Jingyu, who was beside Xing Xuelian, stood up. Heiyue Langjun, who had taken a step back, grabbed the third bamboo stick. Heiyue Langjun stepped forward and took out 2 treasures from his bosom. They were both things that he had obtained from many historical remains. The first item is the Luo Shin Fu from the Luo Shin ruins. It is rumored that this is a poem written by an almighty divine master using his soul. After activating it with vital energy, it can create the image of the Luo Shin, which possesses the fighting power of a half-fairy. It is a treasure that can only be found by luck, and I want to exchange it for 5 crystals. Hearing this, the crowd went into an uproar. What? A fighting power of a half-fairy? His words caused everyone to be tempted. After all, this was tantamount to being able to do whatever one wanted under the fairy realm. However, its flaw is that it can only be used once a day, Heiyue Langjun continued. This was within everyone's expectations. After all, if it could be used countless times, it wouldn't just be worth 5 crystals. At the very least, it wouldn't be any weaker than the semi-manufactured spiritual artifacts fragment. 5 crystals! 5 crystals and a fragment. The crowd started bidding one after another, spending all of their money to purchase this item. This was especially the case for the wandering cultivators, as this was a life-saving charm. In the end, it ended up in the hands of a bearded man. After obtaining this treasure, he immediately left the divine sparrow stage and looked for a place to hide. He was extremely cautious. Heiyue Langjun nodded in satisfaction. When he started to introduce the second item, he glanced at the sky out of the corner of his eyes. Even now, none of the elders on the mysterious heavenly stage had shown any intention of exchanging for it. Heiyue Langjun was filled with anticipation as he opened the jade box of the second item. It was a black bone. There were faint traces of weathering on the bone, which made it seem very ancient. Chapter 588. As you can see, this is the skeleton of a divine master demonic beast. It is an important material for crafting spiritual artifacts and treasures. This time, I am only asking for an exchange. If anyone has the hair of a lunar beast, they will only need 3 strands to exchange for this treasure. The skeleton of a divine master demonic beast? Many people secretly sucked in a breath of cold air, and their eyes were filled with passion. There were many divine master humans in every faction, but divine master demonic beasts were extremely rare. Their bones were the best material for crafting all kinds of spiritual artifacts. Even if they were available, they would be worth dozens of crystals, which was equivalent to half a semi-manufactured spiritual artifact. This item was an eye-opener for them. Heiyue Langjun had really obtained a great fortune. Even Mr. Nan Wu could not help but squint his eyes. However, the entire place was silent. The lunar beast was a special kind of terrifying ferocious beast in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. Its cultivation was at least at the fairy realm, and its whereabouts were mysterious. Even an almighty divine master might not be able to capture it alive. The hair on their bodies contained a very strong een-based aura, and it was the best material for crafting een-based treasures. In the market, it was even rarer than the bones of a divine master demonic beast. Heyu Longjuan's asking price was like a lion asking for a lion. Everyone present knew that Heyu Langjun did not expect them to offer anything. He was counting on the many seniors who were watching. However, even after waiting for a long time, there was no movement from the mysterious heavenly stage. Heyu Longjuan's face stiffened. He was a little unwilling. It's my turn now. Mr. Nan Wu laughed. He was happy to see Heyu Langjun being humiliated. Heyu Langjun was replaced by Mr. Nan Wu. I only have one treasure to exchange for. Mr. Nan Wu took out a palm-sized stone from his chest. On the stone, there was a strange imprint of a door. The door was obviously an imprint, but it was vivid and lifelike, as if it was a real door. That item caused Su Yu to be shocked. He was very familiar with this door. In his soul, beside the divine nine-dragon cauldron, there was a door quietly floating. This was the door that Su Yu had discovered the second time he had entered the underground ruins of Xinyue Island. At that time, he had even encountered the plated bamboo hat man sent by the ninth Saint Master. When Su Yu broke open the stone wall that contained the divine decree, the mark of a door appeared and was imprinted on Su Yu's soul. Until now, Su Yu still had not figured out the use of this door. I don't know what this door is for now, but I can guarantee that it is extremely precious. That's because I've discovered a lot of spirit artifact fragments around this object. The value of this item is immeasurable. How much you can give is up to you. Everyone on the Divine Sparrow stage looked at each other. No one knew what this door was. Just as the item was about to be sold, a transparent shadow suddenly descended from the halo above the nine heavens. After the virtual shadow landed on the ground, it immediately arrived in front of Mr. Nan Wu. It then grabbed the stone with the door in its hand and examined it carefully. This scene caused the entire crowd to boil. The seniors of the 9 prefectures were really attracted here. However, things were not over yet. Another 5 fairies' virtual shadows descended one after another. They rushed over with solemn expressions and surrounded the stone, carefully observing it. Floating life door. It can't be wrong. The few fairies exchanged glances, while grave looks appeared on their faces. To think that something like the floating life door still exists in this world. It can only exist in a place like the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Floating life door? Su Yu listened carefully. Yes, it was this door that summoned the demon. Almost all of the humans in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands were eaten by this demon. Summoned demon? Su Yu was worried. After fighting with a demon once, Su Yu did not want to experience it a second time. Furthermore, the demon they were talking about was a real demon, not a demon formed by the strand of demon's hair. Even now, no one has been able to find out who did it. Whoever controls this door can control the demon that was summoned. Is there even a need to say more? Besides that lord, who else could it be? The group of fairies seemed to have mentioned a forbidden existence, and they all stopped talking. After a long time, one of the fairies looked away and shook his head. This is just the shadow of the door projected by the floating life door. It is not the floating life door. If you are interested, feel free to exchange for it. After saying this, the fairies left one after another. Finally, only the fairy who had descended first was left. He thought for a moment, then put the stone back. It is just a piece of trash. After saying this, all of the fairies left. Mr. Nan Wu was startled, and the corners of his mouth twitched uncontrollably. The thing that he had regarded as a treasure was just a piece of trash? Heyu Langjun laughed. Do you still not understand what the elders mean? If you treat it as a treasure, keep it for yourself. Mr. Nan Wu glared at him. What is so funny? If I am lucky enough to obtain the floating life door, I am afraid you will not be able to laugh anymore. Indeed, Heiyue Longjuan's expression turned serious. It is better not to make such a joke. The elders do not think it is funny. Mr. Nan Wu's expression turned serious, and he shut his mouth. That demon had massacred the 18 blessed and heavenly lands and eaten countless people. It was the nightmare of the human race. Such a joke should not be made. Su Yu's heart trembled. He had the floating life door. Could it be that he could use this door to summon a demon and control it? Thinking of this, Su Yu fell into a state of shock. Even when Sheng Xuelian called out to him twice, he still could not react. Number 6, it is your turn. Sheng Xuelian repeated for the third time. Only then did Su Yu come to his senses. Su Yu stood up and walked forward. He thought for a moment, then took out a middle-grade divine artifact. It was one that he had obtained from the human king of the soul-seizing palace. Once he took out the item, the people present lost interest. They did not lack divine artifacts. Heiyue Langjun smiled. He had thought that Su Yu would take out an earth-shattering item. He did not expect it to be a low-grade divine artifact. There were many people who had the same thoughts as him. Who wants this? Su Yu waved the black demonic hammer. After a moment, a wandering martial artist, who was a demonic cultivator, took out a crystal fragment. One, no more. A middle-grade divine artifact could only be sold for this price. Su Yu was overjoyed. It was a pleasant surprise that he could sell a fragment of a middle-grade divine artifact. Originally, Su Yu had only wanted to give it a try. Clang. The continuous clanging sounds startled the people who were distracted. When they looked over, they were shocked to see that the ground beneath Su Yu's feet was filled with divine artifacts. The lowest grade was a middle-grade divine artifact, and there were a few high-grade divine artifacts. The grade of the treasures was average, but the number was shocking. There were at least 30 to 40 of them. There were demonic artifacts and there were Confucian artifacts. You could think of anything. That's the soul-seizing palace's divine flying ship. No, there's also Cho Ziming's blood sword. Also, that's Zhou Jin's tiger-breaking knife from the Yufeng faction. There's also Yang Yidao's Yuchang sword from the Guiyuan faction. What caused the crowd to be in an uproar was that these treasures had come from the various factions of the 18 blessed and heavenly lands. This caused the crowd to be in an uproar. Why were all their Dharma treasures here? Even Cho Ziming and Yang Yidao's treasures were in the hands of this person. Thinking about their disappearance, the crowd looked at Su Yu as if they were looking at a demon. Chapter 589. There were so many treasures, which meant that the owners of the treasures had all met with misfortune. After one person had met with misfortune, it was luck that the mysterious youth had picked up their treasures. But if everyone's treasures had been picked up, there could only be one possibility. It was him who had killed them. The crowd was agitated, but Su Yu's expression was calm as he said, "Silence." His words contained the power of the Buddhist saint's 8 characters, and the crowd quietened down. Who I am is not important. The life and death of the treasure's owners have nothing to do with you. Now, you only have one thing to do. If you want the treasures, exchange them with crystal fragments. A middle-grade divine artifact, 1 fragment. A high-grade divine artifact, 3 fragments. First come, first served. The crowd was stunned, but a clever person reacted. I want the blood sword and Yuchang sword. 6 fragments, all for you. These words jolted the crowd back to reality. Their life and death had nothing to do with them. Now was the best time to obtain the treasures of these disciples. Especially Cho Ziming and Yang Yidao. These 2 famous outer sanctum disciples had treasures that were definitely worth more than 3 fragments. In an instant, dozens of treasures were being fought over. In the end, Su Yu had obtained 40 crystal fragments, which was equivalent to 4 crystals. At the mysterious heavenly stage of Jiuzhou, Many elders of the prestigious factions had ugly expressions. Especially the soul-seizing Palace. Cho Ziming, who was ranked 10th among the Outer Sanctum disciples, had been sent to search for Divine Master 2mo. His treasures had been auctioned, so he had obviously met with misfortune. Gu Taishu's gaze turned cold as he looked at Lu Qi. Even the items of the Gui Yuan faction? Could it be that he had assassinated his fellow faction members? Gu Taishu was suspicious of Su Yu's identity. Lu Qi also felt that something was amiss. The number of disciples and wandering martial artists that Su Yu had killed was a little too many. He had killed them all, but he had actually dared to openly sell their items in front of the elders of the faction. Was he afraid that they would not know that Su Yu had killed their disciples? When the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion ended, he would be transported here. When that time came, who could protect him? What was worse was that, as a disciple of the Gui Yuan faction, he had killed his own people. Was he crazy? For the first time, Lu Qi was suspicious of Su Yu's identity as a disciple of the Gui Yuan faction. What a good disciple! He even killed a disciple of our wind-riding sect, said a woman whose body was wrapped in a cold wind. Among the many treasures, she saw Zhou Jin's black saber, the tiger-breaking saber. The same angry snorts rose and fell. Lu Qi didn't know what she should do when the time came. She didn't know whether she should protect Su Yu or just watch from the sidelines. On the Divine Sparrow stage, after a round of looting, Su Yu collected the 40 fragments with satisfaction. All right, the sale of the divine artifacts is over. Now let's sell something else. Su Yu raised his hand and waved it. Instantly, 3 golden fruits appeared in the jade box. 20-year-old mysterious feather pomegranate, 3 crystal stones for 1, no bargaining, first come first served. As soon as he finished speaking, the entire audience gasped in disbelief. What? 20 years? Once the profound feather spiritual pomegranate matured, it would usually be eaten by wild beasts. For it to be able to safely grow for 20 years, unless it was artificially bred, it was absolutely impossible. As for artificially bred, the survival rate was unimaginable. There had never been an incredible feather spiritual pomegranate older than 30 years on the market. There was once a 15-year-old incredible feather spiritual pomegranate that had appeared in an auction had been sold for a sky-high price of 10 crystals. The incredible feather spiritual pomegranate's ability to refine spiritual energy was even more powerful the older it was. It was said that a 20-year-old incredible feather spiritual pomegranate could allow the person who consumed it to achieve the cultivation of a 2 crystals half-fairy. It was a miracle, but now it only required 3 crystals. In an instant, 7 or 8 figures dashed forward like the wind, fighting over the 3 incredible feather spiritual pomegranates. Even Heiyue Langjun and Mr. Nan Wu, who had completed their vital energy crystals, were tempted. However, due to their pride, they couldn't fight over it. Just like that, the 9 crystals were successfully obtained. Those who were slow to react or had clearly reacted but were sent flying were filled with regret. The opportunity had been right in front of them, but they had missed it. Cough, cough, you are too close. Su Yu waved his sleeves. At that moment, the crowd had already gathered their focus and was staring at Su Yu. Many of them had even surrounded him. If a treasure appeared in Su Yu's hands, they would be able to snatch it. At the mysterious heavenly stage of Jiuzhou, Gu Taishu looked at Su Yu and curled his lip. You are all useless trash. The rest of the fairies did not say anything. However, at that moment, Su Yu, who was standing on the Divine Sparrow stage, said, There are some other items that you can bid for. A thumb-sized purple shadow flew out of Su Yu's hand and floated in the air. It was a ferocious-looking little bug, and its whole body emitted a ferocious aura. The corpse of a fairy realm demonic beast? Moreover, it has been preserved perfectly? The crowd cried out in surprise. I offer 3 crystals, someone immediately shouted. Get lost. How could you embarrass yourself with just 3 crystals? Even the lowest grade corpse of a fairy realm demonic beast would be worth at least 10 crystals. This bug was extremely rare, and it was obviously a fairy bug that was unique to the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. I'll pay 15 crystal stones. Someone actually shouted out a high price of 15 crystal stones in one breath. 15 crystals? Suyu was satisfied. I offer 16 crystals. Heiyue Langjun said embarrassedly. Mr. Nan Wu's eyes flashed as he looked at the bug's corpse. I offer 17 crystals. The two of them had put down their pride and joined the bidding. They knew that such a bug could not be bought for just a dozen crystals in the outside world. They would need dozens of crystals. Even if they did not need it, they could still sell it for a profit when they returned to Jiuzhou. Nan Wu, do you have that many crystals with you? Heiyue Langjun laughed coldly. Don't bid recklessly. If you don't have any crystals, I think this brother here will teach you a lesson. Mr. Nan Wu laughed and said, just take care of your wallet. I am determined to get it. 18 crystals. Heiyue Langjun increased his bid. Mr. Nan Wu continued to chase after him. The two of them chased each other until the price reached 28 crystals. In the end, it was Heiyue Langjun who could not take it anymore and lost. Suyu was delighted to have obtained 28 crystals in one go. In addition to the 13 crystals he had obtained earlier, he now had 41 crystals. The vital energy contained in such a large number of crystals could almost save Ling Xiaoyan's life. In Jiuzhou, Gu Taishu frowned slightly. You are lucky to have picked up a poisonous bug's corpse. However, it is still trash. Right at that moment, Suyu waved his sleeves and cleared out a large space. There is still one more. Everyone, make way. After clearing out the space, a giant toad suddenly appeared. Hiss, another fairy realm demonic beast's corpse? Moreover, it was just killed? Heiyue Longjuan's eyes lit up. Brother, I want this fairy realm demonic beast. Mr. Nan Wu's cheeks twitched, but he could only watch helplessly. The poisonous bug had already depleted his savings. However, right at that moment, an urgent shout came from the opening above them. Wait, let me take a look at this demonic beast first. The crowd froze as they saw an elder of the fairy realm descend from the opening. The elder of the fairy realm had actually been attracted here. On Jiuzhou's mysterious heavenly stage, Gu Taishu was startled. This is the extinct white-eyed fireglass frog? It actually attracted old Monster Yu's attention. Gu Taishu looked at the white-eyed fireglass frog and could not bring himself to say that it was trash anymore. The expressions of the other fairies changed as well. It is said that the blood of this frog is the best material for drawing high-level fire element talismans. It is really unimaginable that this lad could kill such a creature. If old Monster Yu had not taken a fancy to it, I would have also gone down to exchange for it. However, with old Monster Yu's temper, I would not dare to compete with him. The one who spoke was a later stage fairy, and his face was bitter. Old Monster Yu seemed to have a very special position among them. His cultivation was at the middle stage of the fairy realm, but even later stage fairies did not dare to provoke him. Chapter 590. At the Divine Sparrow stage. Looking at the old man's silhouette descending, everyone made way for him. Suyu looked at the shadow with interest. It was not an illusory body, but an illusory body. It seemed like even though the Jiuzhou Almighties had forcefully opened a gap, they still could not easily enter the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion. Even though it was broken, the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion was still a fairy artifact. Regardless of whether it was a fairy or an almighty divine master, none could break a fairy artifact. Lu Chui's experience was proof enough. Suyu wondered if an all-creation old monster would be affected if he personally came. This thought suddenly popped up in Suyu's mind, but it disappeared in a flash, and he immediately rejected it in his heart. The mysterious heavenly divine pavilion was only for disciples below the fairy realm to train. Although the resources were plentiful and even attractive to divine masters, to an all-creation old monster, unless it was the entire mysterious heavenly divine pavilion itself, the things inside would not be enough. Why would they personally come to such a place? Shaking his head, Su Yu looked at the descending shadow. Although it was only a shadow, its facial features were clear, and its figure could be seen clearly. The old man in front of him was wearing a red robe. His body was surrounded by sparks, and he had a serious expression. "What do you want to exchange for?" the old man asked straightforwardly. His eyes were fixed on the white-eyed fire-glass frog, and he did not look at Su Yu. Su Yu calmly smiled. "What can you give me?" The old man raised his head slightly, looking at Su Yu for the first time. Without thinking, he took out a thumb-sized mechanical puppet from his sleeve. It was in the shape of a puppy, and its appearance was ordinary. It did not seem special at all. This was the first time Su Yu had seen such an item, and he could not help but feel curious. He quietly looked at the gazes around him, only to discover that they were all looking at the puppet with envy. People like Heiyue Langjun and Mr. Nan Wu, who were more knowledgeable, were shocked. It was as if the old man had given them such an item, which was far beyond their expectations. It seemed like a good item. "Deal," Su Yu quickly replied, throwing the white-eyed fire-glass frog's corpse over. The illusory figure of the elder expressionlessly grabbed the white-eyed fire-glass frog and threw it through the gap into the Nine States' mysterious heaven stage. "I need the blood essence of a spiritual creature of the universe to craft a puppet. Although this white-eyed fire-glass frog's cultivation level is average, it is an extinct creature. To other people, it might not be worth such a price, but to me, it is worth a hell-dog puppet." The old man was very fair, and he did not want to take advantage of Su Yu. "Blood essence?" Su Yu's eyes flickered as he took out 2 jade bottles. One of them contained a drop of golden blood that was brimming with Buddha nature. The other one was filled with a drop of black blood, giving off a ghostly aura. The former was the essence blood obtained from the ghost-suppressing golden ring. It was unknown whether it was the soul old man's or someone else's. The latter was a drop of blood essence extracted from the Ghost King's arm. According to the Ghost King, his blood essence had a strong purifying effect on Su Yu's bloodline of the evil ghost and could strengthen his bloodline. However, Su Yu was cautious and had never used it rashly. As the 2 jade bottles appeared, the old-fashioned old man glanced at the ghost blood. The blood essence of the Divine Master Ghost King. Although it has lost much of its spirituality, it is rare and precious for a half-fairy like you to obtain it. Although he was moved, the old man was not too interested. When his gaze swept past the drop of golden blood, his eyes gradually narrowed, and his expression gradually turned serious. "Can I take a closer look?" The old man walked over, his gaze fixed on the drop of golden blood. He was a little surprised. Su Yu was stunned, and he threw the drop of golden blood over. He thought to himself, was the original owner of the ghost-suppressing golden ring really not ordinary? He could be sure that it was not the soul old man's blood essence. After examining the drop of golden blood for a moment, the old man's expression became more and more surprised. Could this be the blood essence of the Buddha of all creations? The Buddha of all creations. A Buddhist cultivator at the level of an all creations old monster? "Lad, where did you get this drop of blood essence from? Do you have any treasures that belonged to the blood essence's owner?" The old man's gaze was bright. Swoosh! At that moment 2 fairy realm experts came down from the gap. "My friend you, this is not good. Even you cannot break the rules," the 2 of them, who were dressed in purple, said to the old man. The old man raised his head coldly and looked at the gap above him. It was as if he could see the many experts above through the light screen. He snorted. "You are really anxious. Are you that afraid that I will find the blood essence of an all creation's old monster and make a puppet that even you are afraid of?" His question was not meant to threaten them, so it was not considered breaking the rules. The two of them had clearly been instructed by the other fairy realm experts to stop him. The old man was a unique existence in the 18 blessed and heavenly land. Although his cultivation was not the best, his attainments in making puppets were unparalleled. It was said that he could make a puppet with the battle power of a divine master. Although it could not be used for a long time, it was still shocking enough that no one dared to provoke him. Because of this, the faction that he led also rose in status and became one of the top forces among the 18 factions. Who would dare to let him obtain the blood essence of an all-creation's old monster and make an even more terrifying puppet? At that time, not only would the fairy realm experts be anxious, but even the almighty divine masters would be afraid. My friend, you have misunderstood. We are just worried that you will accidentally violate a taboo and be blamed by many of our peers. The two of them smiled warmly. How could they admit that they were the people on the mysterious heavenly stage of Jojo who had allowed them to come? As they spoke, they looked at Suyu. Little brother, we also have research uses for this drop of Buddhist blood essence. How about this? Give it to us, and we will owe you a favor. How about that? The positions of the two of them were very subtle. They stood between him and the old man. It seemed like they were preventing the old man from making trouble, but in reality, they were making it easier for him to snatch it. A favor? Suyu laughed coldly in his heart. How could he have the nerve to use such a trick to trick a wolf with nothing at all? They felt very good about themselves, as if they thought that their favor was very useful. That formless arrogance, when compared to the old man's cold face and righteous heart, was really annoying. Suyu smiled calmly. I'm sorry, elders. Since Elder Yu saw it first, as long as he can give me something that satisfies me, it will naturally belong to him. As for the rest of you, please line up. Hearing this, the geniuses at the scene inhaled deeply in their hearts. Making two later stage fairy realm experts line up? Was Suyu crazy? The two smiling fairy realm experts were still smiling. In such a situation, they would naturally not be so infuriated. However, their eyes were flickering with an obscure coldness. Little brother, you still don't know who we are, do you? The two of them laughed softly, but the coldness in their eyes did not seem like they were laughing. Hee, Suyu despised them in his heart. They were slandering the old man with the surname Yu for breaking the rules, but they were the ones who had really broken the rules. They had secretly threatened Suyu. Such behavior should have been condemned unanimously. However, the mysterious heavenly stage of Jojo did not respond. Who cares who you are? I decide what is mine. Who are you to interrupt? Suyu coldly berated them. No matter how high their cultivation was, they were just shadows without actual power. Why should Suyu be afraid? No matter how shrewd they were, being berated by a junior in front of them had caused them to lose face. How could they remain calm? Ha ha! Well said. The old man with the surname Yu looked on coldly from the side. Hearing such words from a junior like Suyu, even someone as rigid as him burst into laughter. Separating the two later stage fairy realm experts, the old man looked at Suyu with a smile. I decide what is mine. You have guts. If anyone dares to take revenge on you in the mysterious heavenly stage, they will have to go through me first. Swoosh. At the same time, the old man shook his sleeves and threw out a palm-sized spider puppet. It was very intricately made, much more advanced than the hell dog. Even the materials used were extraordinary. The two people's expressions changed. A puppet at the later stage of the fairy realm? Old monster you, how could you be so generous? Hearing this, Suyu was shocked. This spider puppet had the fighting power of a later stage fairy realm expert? The silver puppet was a peerless, ferocious creature that had swept through the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, but it only had the fighting power of a later stage fairy realm expert. How could this spider puppet have such fighting power? Elder Yu, this item is too precious. Although my Buddha-like essence blood is precious, it is not worth this puppet. I cannot accept it. Suyu returned it with both hands. Chapter 591. Hearing this, Su Yu was puzzled. He didn't even know who the old man in front of him was, so how could he please him? However, after the old man's reminder, many people secretly nodded. This kid's scheming is not shallow. It's not easy to leave a deep impression on Yu Tianxi. This old monster has an eccentric personality. He won't be sentimental for no reason. Since the old man had said so, Su Yu wouldn't put on an act. He thanked him, then put away the puppet. At the same time, Su Yu's interest in puppets grew. A middle-stage fairy was able to refine a late-stage fairy puppet, or even a divine master puppet. The puppet path was really unfathomable. If he could learn a thing or two about it, it would greatly improve his fighting power in the future. This was especially the case since Su Yu had obtained the silver puppet's main body. If he could refine it again, he could restore the silver puppet and bring it to a higher level. Lad, you did well. The two late-stage fairies looked at Su Yu coldly. This lad had gotten old monster Yu's protection and a puppet that wasn't any weaker than theirs. What a good scheme. After saying this, the two of them soared into the sky and returned to Jiuzhou. Old monster Yu glanced at them, then flew into the sky expressionlessly. Su Yu hesitated for a moment, but in the end, he didn't ask for the puppet crafting technique. They had just gotten to know each other, so it would be foolish of him to impart the puppet crafting technique to him just because he had a good impression of him. It wasn't appropriate for him to ask for it now. Su Yu remembered old monster Yu's face. If he ever reached Jiuzhou, he would definitely pay him a visit. Okay, let's move on to the next one. You've been delayed for too long. Gu Taishu looked down calmly, his resonant voice echoing through the air. Su Yu was startled. He still had 2 items that he hadn't taken out. Wait, I still need some time. I have 2 items that I need to exchange for, Su Yu said. Hearing that indifferent voice, his heart shuddered. Is it another almighty divine master? However, Su Yu's sharp senses detected that the voice seemed to be slightly cold towards him. There is no need. Let's exchange for someone else, Gu Taishu said calmly. Xing Xuelian frowned slightly. According to the rules, the exchange of items depended on how many treasures Su Yu had taken out. Forcefully driving Su Yu away was a violation of the rules. However, no one on Jiuzhou's mysterious heavenly stage dared to question Gu Taishu. He was the strongest god lord present. Even if he were to rob Su Yu in front of everyone, no one would say anything. The Yinyang old man glanced at Su Yu, then calmly withdrew his gaze. His eyes were filled with anticipation. Whether or not the Divine Master Tu Mo's relic will be discovered depends on the next person. I hope they are disciples of the forces under the jurisdiction of my Purple Cloud Palace. Upon hearing this, Gu Taishu cast a glance at the 3 Divine Masters of the Red Blood Palace and nodded lightly. That's right, those 3 old fellas are really quite troublesome. It'd be best if our side's disciples get it. Otherwise, I'll have no choice but to use forceful methods. In other words, he was prepared to snatch it. Old man Yinyang nodded subtly. The 3 people from the Red Blood Palace were also paying close attention to the exchange meet. Once Divine Lord Tu Mo's treasure appeared, a fight over it would be unavoidable. Su Yu furrowed his brows and walked down. He still had 2 damaged items from Divine Lord Tu Mo that he had yet to take out. In the secret room that led to the evil Ghost Valley, Su Yu discovered a corpse, a remnant scroll, and a broken sword. The small Kylin was sealed within the corpse. Even though the remnant scroll and the broken sword were damaged, they should still be worth a few crystals. However, after weighing the 41 crystals that he had accumulated, Su Yu's thoughts became clear. The crystals that he had used to save Ling Xiaotian were enough, and it wouldn't matter if he had more or less. With such a mentality, Su Yu regained his composure and returned to his corner to observe the exchange meet quietly. Half a day had already passed. On the mysterious heavenly stage, the Divine Masters gradually furrowed their brows. They still hadn't found any clues. Could it be that no one had found Divine Master Tu Mo's corpse? They were getting more and more pessimistic about the remaining group of people. Overall, the remaining group of people were far weaker than the previous group of people. Moreover, the stronger they were, the higher their chances of finding the Divine Master Tumo's corpse were. Su Yu was also furrowing his brows. Sure enough, it was unrealistic to find the blood of a real dragon and the lightning-avoiding silver pearl from these ordinary disciples. In the past half a day of the exchange meet, only one fairy realm expert had come. Apart from that, there were only ordinary items. Swoosh. At that moment, the exchange meet was nearing its end. A youth in a black robe, whose face couldn't be seen clearly, walked forward. His voice was low and hoarse as he said, "I need 9 thunderherbs. If you have them, I will give you a satisfactory price." He didn't take out the items that he wanted to exchange. Instead, he was buying them in front of everyone. Thunderherbs? 9? Are you joking? Heyu Langjun laughed softly, his laughter filled with self-mockery. Even the fairy realm elders can't obtain such an item. It can only grow in extremely dangerous places. It's hard to find even one in the market. What right do you have to pay a sufficient price for it? Is this person preparing to go through the tribulation and start making the lightning-avoiding armor? I'm afraid he's looking for the wrong place. Everyone here is in existence close to the fairy realm. If he doesn't have it himself, how could he sell it? We can only depend on the elders above. They might have some treasures. Xing Shuoyan looked at him and reminded him, "Please take out the treasure that you want to display first. Only then can they choose whether or not to exchange with you." The black-robed man hesitated for a while, as if he was unwilling to display his treasure in front of everyone. After struggling for a while, he clenched his teeth and took out a piece of amber. Amber was the sap of a kind of divine tree, and once it was condensed, it wouldn't melt even after 10,000 years. It's amber from an ordinary tree. Is this the price you are talking about? Heyu Langjun snorted disdainfully. Don't waste everyone's time, however. His words stopped abruptly, and his eyeballs, which were staring deep into the amber, gradually shrank. That is... Xinyu Langjun was somewhat uncertain, so he stood up and walked forward to observe it closely. Mr. Nan Wu's eyes were filled with shock and disbelief. "Brother, may I ask where did you get this amber?" Heyu Langjuan's arrogance disappeared, and he cupped his fists and smiled politely. The black-robed man didn't reply, as he didn't seem willing to answer. Mr. Nan Wu's gaze shifted. "Brother, do you only want the thunderherb? Do you want crystals?" Unexpectedly, the black-robed man sneered. "Crystals? How many crystals do you have? Can you afford it?" An anxious look appeared in Mr. Nan Wu's eyes. He was just about to speak when a thunderous voice echoed from the sky. "All of you back off. The blood of a real dragon isn't something that you can covet." Swoosh! The mysterious heavenly divine pavilion shook, and a giant phantom image descended from the sky. Compared to the fairy realm, this person's phantom image was more than 10 times larger, like a giant. Who else could it be other than Gu Taishu, who had that refined yet arrogant face? He, the strongest divine master, had actually descended personally. Swoosh! Swoosh! Then, the phantom images of the Yin-Yang old man and Lu Qi descended behind him at the same time. On the other side, the phantom images of the 3 divine masters of the Red Blood Palace also descended. Hee, the blood of a real dragon, I can't be mistaken, can I? It's actually such a thing. The divine master of the Red Blood Palace, who was the leader, chuckled as he looked at the blood of a real dragon. Below the stage, Su Yu's pupils contracted. The blood of a real dragon had appeared. Chapter 592. Su Yu laughed bitterly. The blood of the real dragon that he had been searching for so long was in the hands of someone close to him. Gang Dalei possessed the bloodline of the Flood Dragon, so it was possible that he could find the blood of the real dragon, but he had not realized this beforehand. Now that 6 almighty divine masters had arrived, the fight for the blood of the real dragon would be fraught with difficulties. 9 thunder herbs. Gu Taishu raised his hand and waved. 9 spiritual herbs that were glowing with a 5-colored radiance appeared from his sleeve. They were indeed the thunder herbs. Hold on. I have some too. The leader of the Red Blood Palaces, Almighty, had long purple hair. He laughed sinisterly and threw out the 9 thunder herbs. Kid, give us the blood of the real dragon. Even if there are 99 of them, I will find them for you. Gu Taishu raised his brows, his eyes cold. Zi Qianqiu, are you going against me on purpose? The blood of the real dragon is of little use to you. Gu Taishu, why ask when you already know the answer? The blood of the real dragon is of little use to us demonic cultivators. But it is very important to you, Gu Taishu. I heard that in order to break through to the all creations realm, you are refining the 9-spirit fairy elixir, which requires the blood essence of 9 types of ancient real spirits. Once the elixir is successfully refined, it will be the moment you break through to the all creations realm. Do you think we will sit back and do nothing? If the Red Blood Palace's Tianxian Palace master hears about this, what kind of punishment will we get? Gu Taishu snorted and turned to look at Gang Dalei. Give me the blood of the real dragon. The rule of first come, first served must be followed. He was the one who had expelled Su Yu and broken the rule first. Now that he was involved, he wanted to follow the rules. Su Yu's heart sank as he watched the 2 parties fight for the blood of the real dragon. Thunder herbs were extremely difficult to obtain for half-fairies, but they were not difficult to find for almighty divine masters. At that moment, Gang Dalei looked up at the 2 parties and shook his head. Do you think I am easy to fool? Or do you think that I will give you the blood of the real dragon because of your high status? Do you really want to exchange the blood of the real dragon with just 9 thunder herbs? The value of a true dragon's blood was far greater than that of a thunder herb. 1 drop of true dragon's blood could not be exchanged for even 100 thunder herbs. The 6 divine masters pretended not to know anything because they were certain that they had Gang Dalei in their grasp. Gang Dalei had to hand it over whether he wanted to or not. This was clearly using the strong to suppress the weak, bullying the weak. You were the one who said that you wanted to exchange for the thunder herb. Why? Are you going back on your word now? Gu Taishu's gaze turned cold. The exchange festival does not allow people to go back on their word. This is the rule. Gang Dalei was calm and composed. He said unhurriedly, the rules of the exchange meet are that I have the final say in my things. I do want the thunder herb, but don't take out the ordinary thunder herb. Don't think that you've got me. If you can't take out something that I'm satisfied with, even if I have to destroy the blood of the true dragon, you can forget about getting it. Gang Dalei said. The expressions of the people from both sides froze. High-grade thunder herb? What they took out were all thunder herbs that had just ripened, about a foot long. Schwa, without hesitation, Gu Taishu took out 9 more thunder herbs. They were 2 feet long, and they were at least 20 years old. Are you satisfied now? Gu Taishu's face was filled with displeasure. The thunder herb grew a foot every 10 years, which meant that its value had multiplied by several folds. Even for him, he had spent a lot of effort to collect 9 20-year-old thunder herbs through a mission issued by the faction. Zi Qianqiu furrowed his brows and silently stored the ordinary thunder herbs. Mature thunder herbs were extremely rare, and it was already difficult to find one, let alone 9 of them. Gang Dalei's eyes lit up. 20 years was not an easy task. Although it was still incomparable to the blood of the true dragon, he knew that to be able to find 9 20-year-old thunder herbs in one go, it was mostly due to luck. Gu Taishu had probably collected them because he had a use for them. Otherwise, it would have been extremely difficult to collect them all. Gang Dalei opened his mouth slightly and was about to nod his head in agreement. Wait. Su Yu, who was standing beside him, stood up. This was his last chance. I also have mature thunder herbs. Gang Dalei looked at him. Su Yu's generous offer was still fresh in his memory. His eyes shone brightly as he asked, "How many do you have?" "A mature one." "It's just one," Suyu said. Gu Taishu furrowed his brows. It was one thing for an almighty divine master of the Red Blood Palace to compete with him, but a nameless little pawn dared to challenge him? Moreover, it was a little ant who had indecent thoughts about his fiancée. "A 30-year-old thunder herb? Can you shut up now?" Gu Taishu took out a 3-foot-long thunder herb from his sleeves. 3 feet meant that it was 30 years old. Zi Qianqiu was stunned. 30-year-old? That's the highest age ever recorded. Gu Taishu, you're really lucky to have prepared such a large amount of thunder herbs. This stock of thunder herb of the highest age forced Suyu to retreat. "If you don't have any problems with it, let's trade," Gu Taishu said indifferently. He had not even looked at Suyu once. Gang Dalei was overjoyed. 30 years was the thunder herb's growth limit, so he could not ask for more. Okay, however, before he could finish his sentence, Suyu opened his mouth and asked, "Is a 30-year-old thunder herb very rare?" Gu Taishu did not even look at him as he said indifferently, "It's not rare, but it's not something someone like you can take out." Suyu shrugged his shoulders. "I really can't take it out." "Then shut up. You're too noisy." Gu Taishu shouted coldly as he strode forward and grabbed the real dragon blood. Suyu said calmly, "You're the one who doesn't know what you're talking about. I really can't take out a 30-year-old thunder herb, but I can take out an 80-year-old one." Swoosh! Suyu raised his hand and a 3-foot-long jade box flew out of the ring on his fingertip. A 5-colored fairy plant lay quietly in it. It was indeed a thunder herb, but its color was unusually bright, and the 5-colored light was a little blinding. In comparison, the 30-year-old thunder rumbling grass was much dimmer. 30 foot long? Zi Qianqiu, who was standing beside him, was shocked. Thunder herbs were just ordinary fairy plants to divine masters like them. However, 80-year-old ones were unheard of. Thunder herbs were extremely difficult to grow, and it was very difficult to grow them artificially. Even the few that did could not survive past 20 years. As for those that grew in the wild, they would usually be eaten by demonic beasts the moment they matured. Only some dangerous places that even demonic beasts could not get close to could survive for 20 years. As for the 30-year-old thunder herb, excluding the demonic beasts, the most important factor was the environment. Only a suitable environment could allow it to grow for 30 years. The 18 blessed and heavenly lands were vast, but there were very few places that were suitable for the growth of thunder herbs. Hence, it was already rare for a 30-year-old thunder herb to appear. As for a 40-year-old thunder herb, it was unheard of. Chapter 593. Everyone's mind was in a daze. How did this thunder herb grow? Gu Taishu's face was stiff, and his eyes were gloomy. The lifespan of a thunder herb is only 50 years. Where did you get an 80-year-old one? The crowd suddenly understood. Indeed, a thunder herb only had a lifespan of 50 years. Was this really a thunder herb? We'll know once we test it. Suyu smiled calmly, then threw the jade box to Gang Dalei. I think you have a way to test it, right? Gang Dalei was exchanging thunder herbs without restraint, so he would naturally be prepared. Hence, he would have many ways to test it. Of course I do. Gang Dalei's eyes shone with excitement. With a swoosh, Gang Dalei took out a small cauldron from his chest. 3 beast heads were carved on it, and it looked very delicate. This is a magical artifact specially used to test thunder herbs. Once the thunder herb is placed in it and vital energy is injected into it, the 3 beast heads will react and spit out halos. The number of halos represents the corresponding grade. For example, the deer head represents the spirituality of the thunder herb. The highest 9 halos represent the 9th grade spirituality of the highest grade. The rabbit head represents the purity of the thunder herb. Even though it is a divine herb, it will still absorb impure energy and be contaminated with impurities. The eagle head represents the resistance to lightning. This is the most important indicator. After all, the thunder herb is used to resist the lightning disaster. After the introduction, Gang Dalei said, "You may begin." Wait. All of a sudden, Gu Taishu spoke and tossed the 9 stalks of 20-year-old thunder herb over. "Check mine first." Gang Dalei did not understand, but he still took it. He looked at Su Yu, asking for his opinion. "It doesn't matter. Let him do it first." It was the first time Su Yu had learned that the same spiritual herbs had different grades. He wanted to see how the spiritual herbs grown in the supreme growing soil were different from the spiritual herbs grown in the natural environment. After receiving Gu Taishu's signal, Gang Dalei grabbed a 20-year-old thunder herb, tore off a part of its root, and placed it in the small cauldron. As Gang Dalei injected spiritual energy into it, the small cauldron trembled slightly, and the 3 beast heads gradually changed. First, the deer heads spit out white halos amidst the trembling. 1, 2, 3. The 3 halos overlapped in the air and were extremely clear. 3rd grade spirituality. Not bad. The thunder herb's spirituality will gradually fade as it grows older, just like how a person grows old, gets sick, and dies. It's rare for it to have a 3rd grade spirituality in 20 years. It's even stronger than many newly matured thunder herbs. Gang Dalei's eyes lit up in surprise. The corners of Gu Taishu's mouth curled up slightly, and he said mysteriously, "Let's talk after you've seen it." Confusion appeared on Su Yu's face. Why is Gu Taishu so confident? Next is the rabbit's head. It's time to test its purity. The purity of the thunder grass is the aspect that affects its grade the most. Even if the environment is slightly polluted, it's very likely that it won't even reach the 1st grade. And in a good environment, it's usually only at the 3rd grade. Gang Dalei paid close attention to the rabbit's head, but he wasn't too interested. At this moment, the rabbit's head began to spit out a pink halo. The halo was hazy and beautiful. 1, 2. Gang Dalei revealed a satisfied expression. Not bad. 2 strands. This means that the environment in which they grew up is not bad. However, the rabbit's head that had paused for a moment actually started to spit out pink halos again. 3. 4. What? 4. Gang Dalei was shocked. Then, he exclaimed, "Wait, there's more." The rabbit's mouth started to spit out more. 5 rays, 6 rays, 7 rays. At this moment, not only Gang Dalei, but even Zi Qianqiu was shocked. A 7th grade purity? How could there be such a purity in this world? It's impossible. Suddenly, Zi Qianqiu seemed to have thought of something, and he asked in shock, "Could it be that you went to the fairy mountain?" Gu Taishu stood with his arms crossed, and a mysterious smile appeared on his face. "What do you think?" Hearing this, Zi Qianqiu secretly sucked in a breath of cold air, as if he had just heard some shocking news. Gang Dalei's face was filled with shock and excitement. The higher the purity, the more durable the armor would be after it was weaved. 7th grade purity. This was extremely rare. All of a sudden, Gang Dalei started to consider whether he should give up on Su Yu's thundergrass. Continue. Gu Taishu revealed a meaningful look. Zi Qianqiu took a deep look at Gu Taishu, and when he looked at Su Yu, his gaze was filled with pity. Su Yu saw all of their expressions, and his heart couldn't help but skip a beat. Could it be that the fairy mountain was some special place? Could the spiritual herbs from there be special as well? It's starting. The eagle's head indicates that it has lightning resistance. A mature 10-year-old thundergrass with good lightning resistance would normally have 3 halos, and a few of them would have 5 halos. The overall grade of this thundergrass will be determined at the end. Gang Dalei was excited. These 20-year-old thundergrass had given him many surprises. Zi Qianqiu's gaze shifted, occasionally glancing at the real dragon's blood in Gang Dalei's hand. If Gang Dalei really decided to make a deal with Gu Taishu, they might have to resort to extreme measures. Although it would annoy Gu Taishu, he would not have the guts to kill them. Buzz. The eagle's head started to vibrate, and it spat out 3 halos from its mouth. 3 halos at the beginning? Gang Dalei was extremely satisfied, and his eyes were filled with anticipation. Buzz, buzz. As expected, after a short pause, the eagle's head continued to spit out more halos. Another 2 halos were spat out. 5 halos, the lightning resistance is among the best. Gang Dalei was extremely satisfied. His attention had already shifted from Su Yu's thundergrass to the 9 unusually special thundergrass. At that moment, the eagle's head spat out the last halos. 6 halos. It's already at the top grade. Gang Dalei was overjoyed. These 9 thundergrass were of excellent quality, and the thunder armor made from them would definitely be more effective than expected. Old man, I didn't disappoint you. I didn't let you raise me for nothing. Gang Dalei thought to himself excitedly. In summary, the spiritual qualities were 3rd grade, the purity was 7th grade, and the lightning resistance was 6th grade. All in all, it was a 5th grade thundergrass. Moreover, it was a 20-year-old thundergrass. Are you satisfied? Gu Taishu said calmly. The examination is over. A 5th grade thundergrass was extremely rare, and Gang Dalei was extremely satisfied. He didn't need to examine Su Yu anymore. Gang Dalei hesitated for a moment, then looked at Su Yu. Brother, I'm sorry. I think these 9 thundergrass are more suitable for me. Swish. Is that so? Can you let me test your magical treasure? Su Yu didn't say much, but asked for the magical treasure that could examine the thundergrass. Gang Dalei shook his head and threw the magical treasure to Su Yu. In his opinion, Su Yu's examination was no longer necessary. The older the thundergrass, the lower its spiritual qualities. After 80 years, it probably didn't have much spiritual qualities left. The overall grade of this thundergrass was probably not even 2nd grade. The sparks in Zi Qianzhou's eyes shone even brighter. The worst-case scenario had really happened. Let's trade. We've wasted enough time, Gu Taishu said calmly. Gang Dalei looked at Zi Qianzhou and the other 2 warily. In other words, it wasn't safe to trade here. Humph. Just give it to me. They can't take what belongs to me. Gu Taishu laughed coldly. They had already shed all pretenses of cordiality and were ready to fight over this. Lu Chuyi and the Yinyang old man, who had followed them, were both on guard, ready to strike at any time. The 3 divine masters of the Red Blood Palace had cold looks on their faces. Once Gu Taishu obtained the blood of a real dragon, the 9-spirit fairy elixir would be 1 step closer to completion. When that day came, the 18 blessed and heavenly lands would probably give birth to a 3rd all-creation old monster. No matter what, they couldn't let Gu Taishu obtain the blood of a real dragon. The 2 sides were ready to fight, and a great battle was about to break out. However, right at that moment, a hurried and crisp sound rang out clearly in everyone's ears. As everyone looked towards the source of the sound, they were all petrified. They saw Su Yu holding the magical treasure and examining his thundergrass, as if there was no one else around. The deer head, which represented its spiritual qualities, was continuously spitting out many halos from its mouth. At the same time, the deer head seemed to have come to life. It was full of spiritual qualities, as if it was about to leap out of the magical treasure. The shocking scene caused everyone to fall silent. Even the elders on the mysterious heavenly stage looked as if they had seen a ghost. They stared at the 9 halos in disbelief. 9 halos, spiritual qualities, 8th grade? After a long time, Gang Dalei swallowed a mouthful of saliva. His voice, which had a different tone, could be heard. The spiritual qualities of an 80-year-old thundergrass had actually reached the 8th grade. Even a newly matured thundergrass couldn't reach such a level. It's only at the 8th grade? Su Yu shook his head in disappointment. He had assumed that the spiritual herbs cultivated by the supreme growing soil would be perfect in all aspects. However, there was still a small gap between the 8th grade and the highest grade, the 9th grade. Hearing this, many people came back to their senses. They were so shocked that they almost bit their tongues. What kind of joke was this? A 6th grade spiritual quality was already considered extraordinary, while a 7th grade spiritual quality was legendary. As for an 8th grade spiritual quality, even the elders who had set up the grade setting had never imagined that a thunder grass's spiritual quality could reach the 8th grade. Impossible! A gloomy and cold shout resounded in the silent divine sparrow stage like a clap of thunder. Gu Taishu raised his finger and pointed it at Suyu. Examine it again. During the great battle, no one had noticed Suyu's actions. Hence, it was possible that he had done something to it. Suyu turned a deaf ear to Gu Taishu's words and continued to instill his vital energy. The rabbit's head trembled slightly as it spat out a pink mist. What was different from before was that the rabbit's head had turned completely pink. It continuously spat out a large number of halos, instead of stopping for a moment. Counting the light circles in the sky, there were a total of 7 of them. They were almost the same as the thunder grass that had been taken from the fairy mountain. 7th grade purity. Could it be that this is also a thunder grass taken from the fairy mountain? Ziqiancho was shocked. Although there was a place in the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion that could nurture thunder grass, it was impossible for it to nurture such a nature-defying spiritual herb. Only 7th grade purity? Suyu slightly furrowed his brows. However, the rest of the people were still shocked. If the 8th grade spiritual quality had been tampered with, then the fact that it was a 7th grade purity was indisputable. It was another thunder grass that was so pure that it made one's hair stand on end. Gang Daliai's eyes were filled with excitement. Both its spiritual quality and purity are of the highest grade. Moreover, it has been growing for such a long time. This is simply unimaginable. The older it was, the more spiritual quality it would lose, and the more impurities it would accumulate. However, all of this had been turned upside down in front of this 80-year-old thunder grass. Chapter 594. Judging from its previous performance in these two aspects, its lightning resistance was definitely not weak. Even if its resistance was only at the 3rd grade, its overall quality would still be at the 6th grade, which was better than the thunder herb that Gu Taishu had plucked from the fairy mountain. Ziqiancho's eyes shone with anticipation. If the blood of the real dragon was obtained by Suyu, it would be a good choice. Although it was a pity, it was still better than Gu Taishu obtaining it. Moreover, they could also avoid confronting Gu Taishu directly. Thinking of Gu Taishu's strength, Ziqiancho felt a little weak. If they were to really fight, Gu Taishu alone could probably suppress all 3 of them. He was known as the #1 genius in the 18 blessed and heavenly lands in the past 1,000 years. Since ancient times, there had never been anyone like him who was approaching the all-creation realm in his early 20s. His potential was unparalleled in the 18 blessed and heavenly land. Now that Suyu had managed to snatch the blood of the real dragon, they secretly heaved a sigh of relief. However, under everyone's attention, the eagle's head did not move even after a long while. Could it be that it is too old, which is why it is different from normal thunder herbs? Ziqiancho had a bad premonition as he spoke. The strange scene made everyone's heart skip a beat. Could it be that the thunder herb's lightning resistance had been lost because it was too old? Not all spiritual herbs' medicinal effects would increase over time, and the thunder herb was one of them. After a while, Suyu continued to instill vital energy into it, but the eagle's head still showed no reaction. His heart gradually sank. Was there really something wrong with the spiritual herbs cultivated in the supreme growing soil? Do you want this kind of thunder herb? Gu Taishu retracted his gaze and asked Gang Daliai. It was obvious that he was taking pleasure in Gang Daliai's misfortune. The thunder herb's performance just now really made him a little nervous. Gang Daliai's face stiffened, and the excitement in his eyes gradually dimmed. His heart felt empty. He had thought that he had encountered a top-grade thunder herb, but in the end, I know what to do. Gang Daliai sighed silently, trying to cheer himself up. Gu Taishu's thunder herb was also rare, and it had far exceeded his expectations. Hence, he was not too disappointed. Just as they were about to trade, Su Yu gave up on trying. Since he had exhausted all his normal methods, it seemed like he could only use some extreme method. The blood of the real dragon was the key to Su Yu's rebirth of light and the opening of the heavenly eyes. However, at the moment when Su Yu stopped infusing vital energy and put down the inspection treasure, a cracking sound could be heard. The eagle head, which had not reacted all this while, suddenly exploded. The flying fragments were caught off guard and shot in all directions. The people present were all people with high cultivation, so they naturally couldn't hurt them. Su Yu waved his sleeves, and the fragments of the explosion were swept aside. Gang Dalei tilted his shoulder and moved his body to the side, avoiding the 3 fragments. As for Gu Taishu and Zi Qianqiu, they did not move at all. When the fragments reached a foot in front of them, they were shattered by a formless aura. This scene caused Su Yu to be vigilant. There seemed to be a huge difference between the virtual shadows of a divine master and a fairy. The first 2 law-enforcing fairies' virtual shadows did not have any power. However, the God Master's phantom actually contained cultivation. Judging from how they had blocked the fragments just now, they all had the abilities of the fairy realm. For a peerless expert like Gu Taishu, his strength had even reached the later stage of the fairy realm. In the mysterious heavenly divine pavilion, he was definitely a top-notch existence. What did you do? Gu Taishu looked over coldly, and as he glanced at the shattered treasure, he slightly furrowed his brows. Su Yu did not understand either. He had only stopped infusing vital energy, and the treasure had naturally shattered. Zi Qianqiu's eyeballs moved slightly, and he pondered for a moment. Then, with some doubt, he picked up a fragment of the eagle head. He held it between his fingers, and with a gentle pinch the fragment turned into dust. The inside of the eagle head has already been shattered. I'm afraid that it has been damaged for a long time. After not being used for a long time, I rashly used it just now, causing it to shatter. Zi Qianqiu's eyes shone brightly once again. Everyone understood what he meant. It was not that Su Yu's thunder herb did not have any resistance, but that the eagle head that was used for the inspection had been destroyed. Although such a statement was far-fetched, it was not impossible. Lad, you should have a spare inspection treasure, right? Zi Qianqiu asked. Gang Dalei was also confused about the explosion of the treasure. If he could inspect it again to find out the true resistance of the thunder herb, it would not be a big deal. That's unnecessary. Gu Taishu clasped his hands behind his back, but did not stop him. After smiling apologetically, Gang Dalei retrieved another spare treasure. This time, he would personally inspect it. After placing a root into it, everything returned to normal. 8th grade spirituality, 7th grade purity. The dazzling halo lit up everyone's eyes once again. It's the last item. Gang Dalei's eyes were filled with anticipation as he continued to inject vital energy into it. 1 breath, 2 breaths, 3 breaths. However, after half a cup of tea's time had passed, there was still no movement. If one of the treasures could not be inspected, then it might be the treasure's problem. However, if 2 treasures could not be inspected, then it must be the thunder herb's problem. It seems like it really does not have any resistance to lightning. Gang Dalei was disappointed, and he slowly stopped infusing vital energy into it. Zi Qianqiu was speechless, and he sighed silently. It seemed like the thunder herb really did not work, and they could only fight it out. It would be extremely difficult to snatch the blood of a real dragon from Gu Taishu. However, even if they could not snatch it away, they might still have a chance if they destroyed it. Gu Taishu said calmly, "Hand it over. We have wasted too much time, and my patience is limited." Gu Taishu was getting impatient after being interrupted again and again. Gang Dalei sighed silently. There was indeed no need to continue. Bang! However, at this moment, the magic treasure in his hands suddenly exploded again. Caught off guard, Gang Daily's palm was sliced open by the shrapnel, and fresh blood flowed out. What happened? Did it explode again? Everyone's eyes were fixed on Su Yu's Thunderherb. The first time it exploded was because of the treasure, but the second time it exploded was because of the Thunderherb. Could it be that the 80-year-old Thunderherb was so special that it could cause the treasure to explode again and again? Zi Qianqiu, who was secretly preparing for the battle, thought for a moment, then asked Su Yu, "Can you give me another Thunderherb? I have a way to roughly test its resistance." Su Yu did not waste any time, and he threw a root over. Zi Qianqiu caught it, and the person behind him passed him a black gourd. Whiffs of lightning energy flowed out of the gourd. The power of the lightning was not weak. At least, when it appeared, the surrounding geniuses all took a step back. Disastrous thunder. The disastrous thunder in the gourd varied in strength, and each type was weak and did not have much power. There are 5 types of disastrous thunder in here. The lowest grade can injure early-stage fairies, while the highest grade can injure middle-stage divine masters. You can use the disastrous thunder to test the thunder herb's resistance. If it really has no resistance, the lowest grade of thunder will be enough to turn it into ashes. Hearing this, the crowd secretly nodded. This method was indeed feasible. The thunder herb was used to resist thunderbolts, so using the thunderbolts to test its resistance was the best way to do so. I remember that you still have disastrous thunder that can injure late-stage divine masters, don't you? Didn't Mo Tianxian ask you to bring it along? Gu Taishu asked coldly. Zi Qianqiu laughed. I did bring it along, but I don't think I will need it. A 9th-grade thunder herb can only block disastrous thunder that can injure middle-stage fairies. If it can block 2 disastrous thunder, that is enough to prove its strength. There is no need for more. You are really confident that this thunder herb's resistance is at the 9th grade? Gu Taishu snorted. I did not say that. I was just testing it. Zi Qianqiu was obviously not confident either. Zi Qianqiu then took out a purple thunderbolt. The thunderbolt emitted an aura that made even the half-fairies shudder. Even Su Yu took a few steps back. This kind of thunderbolt was the disastrous thunder that one would face when trying to break through to the fairy realm. The purple thunderbolt was like a strand of hair, slowly wrapping around the roots of the thunder herb. Crack! A soft sound of thunder could be heard as the purple thunderbolt danced continuously, as if it wanted to turn the thunder herb into ashes. As for the roots of the thunder herb, they turned pitch black, as if they were really damaged. This scene caused Zi Qianqiu's face to sink. Is this thunder herb really useless? However, right at that moment, the purple thunderbolt flickered, as it was absorbed by the roots. Then, the roots recovered from their charred state. This is absorbing the power of the thunderbolt? Isn't the effect of this thunder herb to resist thunderbolts? What does it mean by absorbing thunderbolts? Even the almighty divine master, who was experienced and knowledgeable, was stunned. Then, he suddenly realized something and revealed a look of surprise. TSK, could this be the additional effect of an aged thunder herb? After some spiritual herbs reach the age limit, their effects will be strengthened, or even mutated. He then added, an 80-year-old thunder herb's effect changed from being resistant to thunderbolts to absorbing thunderbolts. It's no wonder that the magical treasure could not detect it and exploded instead. That's because the effect of the thunder herb has already mutated. What? There was such a thing? Everyone who heard this was amazed. Humph. Nonsense. It's all based on your guesses. Gu Taishu's face sank slightly. The twist of events had greatly exceeded his expectations. It was not that the thunder herb did not have any resistance, but that it had evolved and gained an even stronger ability to resist thunderbolts, which was to absorb disastrous thunderbolts. Hee, you know very well whether that's the case or not. Zi Qianqiu took out a second thunderbolt, which had an even more terrifying aura. It was a disastrous thunderbolt that could threaten even middle-stage fairies. Just like before, the thunderbolt wrapped around the roots of the thunder herb. The roots were first charred black, then they absorbed the thunderbolt. Even such thunderbolts can be absorbed. This is a thunderbolt that can test a 9th grade resistance. Xiqianzhou's face relaxed. At this point, the fight for the real dragon's blood would come to an end. As long as Gang Dalei was not a fool, he would know what to do. Although it was just a simple comparison of items, its brilliance left the crowd of half-fairies speechless. After a few ups and downs, the final conclusion could finally be reached. Let's see what degree of disastrous thunderbolts this thunder herb can withstand. Xiqianzhou smiled. He was quite interested in the thunder herb.